I was thinking about it. I'm an introvert. Like I'm a painfully and always have been a painfully sort of interior person.
You can change that as much as you want. If you packed everything up, like cut the internet off and moved to a new town, like who would you be there? If you wake up every day, you have a capacity to be great.
Ask you something. Is the next 30 seconds guaranteed?
Yeah, never.
Never.
You have to answer every day when you go to bed. Were you a good person? Were you kind? Did you care about others? Or were you selfish and only thought about what you wanted?
Continuing to ask questions in like a kind or positive way.
If I can create a spot where people can come together.
Stay off the internet, stop researching, because all you're going to do is get in your head.
I did what everybody does when they're about to die. I started praying.
This might be my last fork in the road.
Get busy living or get busy dying.
Exactly. Welcome to our journey,
where open dialogue and curiosity are the only requirements.
whether it be serious or lighthearted,
Music, heroing stories,
aliens,
or politics or comedic debauchery.
We attempt to peel the layers back and connect together in a way that's genuine and honest.
Without any script or idea what the hell is going to happen.
This is organic, curious, human interaction.
We thank you for joining us and ask, if you enjoy the show, please do all the things that social media requires for its more ridiculous algorithms.
The like button, follow, subscribe, comment, and review.
And although we may have a disdain for algorithms, it's how the internets work.
But if you have as much disdain for them as we do, you can visit the website, chroniccuriosity.com. The link is in the description. You can find all of our stuff there.
And the store, Tony, which you can pick yourself up some fantastically curious merchandise.
Welcome to Chronic Curiosity.
And here we go.
Sometimes we can ramble.
That's what I'm saying.
So, yeah.
Well, that's what you guys are here for, just to talk.
Yeah.
So, the Bearded Freaking Butchers.
Hey,
that's
here
us.
in the studio. Super excited.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Scott
Yep.
and Seth, so appreciative of being here. And Craig Nolletti, welcome back. And also thanks
What's
for
up, Craig?
facilitating. Yeah, Craig's always, he just looks like he kind of looks like a bodyguard sitting over in the corner. It's like,
That'll work.
yeah. And
There is a role we'd like to bring Craig in for, so we've been working on him.
We're grooming him.
Yeah.
oh yeah.
I've
He
we've been
used to
grooming
be
him
a bearded
for
butcher
12
with
years
us,
now.
and we'll talk about that later. But yeah, he could be the fourth brother in the family.
I could see that.
Yeah.
He would fit. Well, it's Tony's on his way. He should be here soon. He had to work late. He works like 3 jobs. He's a nurse practitioner. So he works at the Wayne County Jail, and he works up in Cleveland doing some things with different stuff. But so he's working late because that was a weeknight, which we usually do it on Saturdays, but I know you guys are crazy busy.
Yeah, we pretty slam-o'd. Yeah.
I believe that. That sounds like he just got here, but the beard power that'll be here when Tony
no
is with
kidding.
all of you guys together. Like it's funny because like I see people now that I haven't seen in a while. They're like, oh, because I've never grown a beard like this ever in my entire life. It just kind of happened, and I'm like, oh man, I'm getting this nice beard. And then I'm sitting down here and I'm like,
Yeah.
Aren't you glad you have it? Yeah. Come on, Cassie.
First podcast that I've done with somebody with a bigger beard than me. So yeah, Craig gets
he
that
takes
honor.
the cake.
We'll
He's
go
got
ahead and
the-
just admit that on camera and
Yeah.
this podcast.
yeah. Oh, awesome. So for those that don't know who the Bearded Butchers are, if you've ever heard of Whitefeather Meats, in Creston, just phenomenal place for you guys do everything from basically beginning to end as far as butcher work and everything else.
Yep.
Tony.
How's it going?
Tony?
Yeah. We just got done talking about how the biggest beard I've ever grown doesn't feel so
Oh, I was thinking
great and majestic anymore.
Like the worst of all the beards out here, which is it's crazy to feel like that. Oh, does your beard have mine? Probably does. It's
No,
pretty luxurious.
yours is probably nicer than mine. Still.
Well, Tony's got us beat with the hair, so no. Yeah. Overall, I think the hair length with the two,
Oh, yeah,
he's got
probably.
us beat.
Oh,
You just
So-
add them together.
gotta do something, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we just started. So we're talking about Whitefeather Meats, you guys run a butcher shop out in Creston, Ohio.
Right up the road, literally.
Yeah, from here, which is, phenomenal. Like I talked about before we started recording that, I've had people say like, "Hey, have you ever tried that Whitefeather place?" I'm like, or they're like, "Hey, I've been thinking about trying that." I'm like, "Don't think about it, just do it." Phenomenal stuff. It was, I think, right before, as we were walking down, I feel like my daughter told you guys that she doesn't like the fat on steak, but she likes the fat on your guys' steak.
That tastes good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I feel like you guys I've been told by Craig, you guys have an interesting story of how you've got where you are. Like, how did you find yourselves where you're at?
Well, Craig's a part of that story. So, yeah, we'll bring him in on it, too, because we'd like to hear his side of the story, because he got to work with us for a few years. So,
yeah. So we started butchering at a young age. It kind of begins with our father, well, mom and dad. So we were raised in Wadsworth, Ohio, and our dad was a military, or is a military veteran. He was in the Vietnam War, airborne ranger, and so when he got out of the military, he got wounded, and so when he got out of the military, or he was still in the military, but they wouldn't let him jump again, so he had to work stateside. So he went down to Fort Bragg and went through drill sergeant school, or drill instructor school, and became a drill instructor sergeant. 68, 69 during the war. So he was pushing troops through the war. These guys were getting shipped out to Vietnam. So we were raised by, a guy that just, he has one switch and it's on.
And his boot is always in your ass.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, that was our life.
And his job was, make you or break you. So, but he kind of went into more of a pacifist role after the military, in fact, going so far as to join a Mennonite church. So we kind of were born into a Mennonite setting, even though we weren't really Mennonite. And we actually, that church ran a school, and that school we attended. I'll tell people it's like we were kind of in the 1850s in a sense, because like it was like a 2-room schoolhouse. We got a really good fundamental education in your 3 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic. It was just like, that's pretty much the basic stuff that you need. Well, I was born in 82, so he had, our dad had come from a farming family, even though they weren't really farming anymore. He had grown up as a child going down to Southern Ohio, and his grandpa, kind of came from that hillside farm. His grandpa, or our grandpa, his dad was in the Navy, so there was a military lineage there. But anyway, he bought a dairy farm, and he wanted to kind of embrace the farming lifestyle. And so in the 70s, he was doing this dairy farm, and on into the 80s. So it was like the mid 80s, and there was an ad in the local newspaper for a guy that owned a hardware store in Medina, and he wanted to go to Arizona for the winter, and he needed somebody to watch his buffalo herd. So he put an ad in the paper. Well, my dad answered the ad, and that was the point where he found the animal that he fell in love with, because
it wanted to kill him every time
he
went
aligned
into the
with that.
Yeah.
A challenge.
Yeah, massive challenge.
And the saying is, you can make a buffalo go anywhere he wants to go. And so, I mean, that was just the sledgehammer approach that aligned with him. So he's out with the dairy cows. He bought this buffalo herd because the guy was like, all right, I'll just get out of the business or whatever. So this was in like 87, 88. He bought this buffalo herd, and so he wanted to market the meat, and he was getting the animals butchered at what it would have been Hansy Meats, the place we own now. So like 4 or 5 years went by, and he was getting the animals butchered. He was taking the meat to local health food stores, and telling them it was organic, healthy red meat, and kind of playing off on even the low fat thing of the time, because it was really popular in the early 80s and kind of still going on. So he was getting the bison butchered and selling the meat. In 93, the owner said, "Hey, I'm getting out of the business or whatever." So he decided he was gonna buy the place. With it came an established business where it did custom slaughter. So like if you guys raised beef and pigs or whatever, and you wanted to get them butchered, you give them a call, put them on the schedule, drive them up there, and on that date you drive your pigs or beef or whatever there. So that business came with it, and but just at the time it was 94 or whatever. And so he relocated to the Creston area, and obviously we moved into Creston, and we left that setting, that Mennonite setting, and that school. And that's essentially the last time I walked into the classroom was at the end of 5th grade. I never went back into a classroom after that. And what's remarkable about that is the education that we gained in the position that we're in now is like I said, it's kind of like if you rolled back 100 or 100 plus years, some of these entrepreneurs that became huge household names that we still see today. I'm sure there's plenty of examples, but I think like Wendy's is one of them, and others. But Dave Thomas,
it used to be something that we were embarrassed about. But now it's like we're proud of it, because it's like we'll run anybody at this point, because it's like we'll prove to you that it doesn't take professional education, college degree to be successful in life.
Right.
Like, and we're living proof.
Yeah, and there's certainly examples where that's applicable.
Yeah. And not even right. Not everything's that way, because I understand there's areas, and depending on what you get into, that you need that. We understand that.
Right.
State of the Hall band, brain surgeon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the life changed dramatically though, because in '94 our dad had he acquired this. It was actually a farm with the meat business attached, and essentially came with his customer base, and his intention was to slaughter the buffalo, and distribute the meat nationwide and things like that, and. In '95, so we were kind of homeschooling and stuff like that. What our parents had time for, starting a new business. You get pretty well wrapped up into it, or not a new business, but taking over a business, and getting the rubber meets the road. Well, in '95, the former owner went, and he after only a 1-year non-compete, which was all they had, he opened up the same business, just 2 miles down the road. Well,
that's awfully close.
It's awfully close, and and of course, after 30 plus years of operating in the area, all the customers that we were counting on, our dad was counting on to, sort of pay the bills and everything, this new mortgage and everything. They went back to that business, and
Did he plan it like that? Like what? Like was
so? The story came out later.
We were told, but
that he wanted to own both places. So eventually, his intention was that he was gonna buy it back.
That's kind of dirty.
It is kind of dirty, and he's gone now and whatever. But
I'm using your broken chair, Craig. I thought I fixed it.
Good thing you didn't put him in that one.
No,
yeah. Craig broke your chair last time he was here.
Yeah, that's the one.
I'm holding very still.
no, this is the same broken chair.
Yeah.
I was going to use a different one. I was like, I think I fixed it. I didn't fix it. It's still broke. Sorry.
No, so and my dad, he. Yeah, being a military guy, he would always say, like, survival comes down to just quit thinking, do your job.
Right.
Like I'd have guys in the jungle, and
your
he's
head
like,
down and bone meat.
Yeah, he's like, I'd have guys in the jungle. They'd quit on me. I'd wrap my belt around their neck and say, I'll get you out of here alive instead of in a body bag if I have to, drag you. But he taught us, just you just keep putting one foot in front of the other until your landscape changes. So, but. We were young at the time, so he set about just gathering in whatever business he could. Of course, he still had the bison, and that remains the cornerstone of our business because we still raise and slaughter bison. That never went away. But in order to pay the bills, one of the things that the former owner didn't do was butcher deer. And at the time, this was like '95, ostrich meat became a fad. So we started butchering all these ostrich. People were bringing ostrich to us. I'm 13 years old, And I'm grabbing an ostrich by its beak and snapping it in the head with this captive bolt gun.
With the bolt.
Mm-hmm.
How did that become a thing?
In '96, I think we did over 500 birds.
Well, wait, how old were you guys in '96?
In '96,
when you started working full time.
I started. Well, that transition was really awkward because we had left that setting, so we didn't have a school to go to, and we weren't going to go to public school, so we were homeschooling. But we had to quit.
Sounds like you were in the coolers just butchering stuff.
Exactly. So it's like,
full-time employees.
Our dad would holler up the steps at like 3:30 in the morning and be like, we're going to the slaughter floor.
Time to make the donuts.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, so
time to kill some cattle.
So we our education, as far as like formal education, pen to paper, pretty much ended there, and it was in the setting where we were working 12, 16, 18 hours a day. And I was like 12 at the time when I started pretty much working full time. Seth was about 14. And so we were kind of doing anything that would pay the bills. So that included the deer, which, we would do. I think in 1995, we did like 1,000 deer. And so I'm like 13 years old, and guys would back their trucks up there, and I would pull this deer off, and I had to take in, skin the thing up. And so, long hours, and we learned to just like Seth said, just put your head down and work.
Little did we know though what role that would play later in life, because like at the time we were just pissed because like we were young, we wanted to be doing stuff with our friends, but here's all this this tons of work.
I want to go jump my bike off some
exactly.
Yeah, you're not thinking about you're not thinking about that much work, but go ahead.
So we're staying alive basically, and
but at the time I remember the electric company would show up and say, hey, if you don't pay a bill, your electric's going to get shut off.
Yeah,
that type of stuff.
It
It was tough. The banks
never went without a meal, but
right.
it wasn't
nothing glorious about it at all.
It wasn't ideal. Threats of foreclosure and things like that, and so we started to gain a reputation though for doing quality work. And our dad was always a big procedures guy, and that came from the military. And so he put procedures in place, like when we put people's orders together and stuff like that, we had to like count every piece and so that way make sure it was all, cut properly. It was all there and everything. So, that word started to get out. So through the mid 90s, people started to come in bringing their domestic animals, their beef and pork and stuff back to us. And, we started to gain some traction. He had hired some employees. So we were working full time. He had other full-time employees, adults that we were working with. And then in 1998, Walmart in Worcester went to a super Walmart, and they started a grocery and a meat section. Right. And all the employees quit on the same weekend. So on Monday morning, Seth was 18 at the time, and
Dad always they put in their 2-week notice, but Dad would never let anybody work 2 weeks after they put in their notice.
As Craig raises his hand,
if you put in your notice,
a story behind that one,
you were not permitted back in our building the next day.
Oh wow!
Like it was just.
I've been back since.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. He's been welcomed back into the fold.
Yeah, it took. But how many years did that take? Though?
I don't think it was years.
A couple months.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Monday morning, the cooler's full of animals that have been slaughtered and they need cut up.
Right.
Well, Seth, he pretty much had to start working the breaking saw, which is just your bandsaw, your vertical bandsaw. So every carcass has to come out and has to pretty much go through that saw. So he started that position, and we have an older brother too, Sean. So he was in the very beginning. He wasn't involved in the meat business. He had
how much older is he than?
He's 12 years older than me and 10 older than Seth.
Okay, so he was
quite a bit older.
Almost like he was basically, was he like out of the house then? By
the
time
yeah.
So he was gone. So he didn't
married, started a family, everything.
And he had a business where our dad and grandpa, even when they were dairy farmers, they did concrete work. So they had a concrete business, Perkins & Sons Concrete, Wadsworth, Ohio. It's a pretty popular business, and they did a lot of work. And Sean had taken that over. So anyway, he got sucked back in. So we were kind of all working in there together, and it was just basically, pull yourself up by your bootstraps once again. So 98, 2000, early 2000s. And then it just became about, with that model, that business model, it's how much work can you get done, because you get paid on what goes across the rail. So pennies add up. You stay within the confines of what your competitors are, and we're pretty well saturated in this county with that type of business.
Yeah.
So, you can't, maybe within a nickel or whatever of the next guy over, just to stay competitive. So it becomes, how many pounds can you cross that rail? Because that's how you get paid. And so quite frankly, those years wore off in a hurry, in a sense, like, we're teenagers and young adults, and it just became, hamster wheel of sorts, wash, rinse, repeat. And but we were beyond the, we're going to go out of business stages, and we gained a very good reputation in the area for doing quality work. So our schedule had filled up to we were within, a year, we'd be booked a year out. And of course, in the meantime, we're getting married and all these things that, the domestic stuff that you do, and
having all the kids.
So, in 2007, 2008, we got to the point where we wanted to try to bring in some more butchers. So that's where we met Craig. His father-in-law raised cows that we were butchering. It began with custom work, and now we buy a lot of them because our business model changed.
I have a question, because you mentioned the rail a couple times.
Yes.
So that's a term that I'm not familiar with.
Sure.
And Tony does this because I told you he's a nurse practitioner. I know always like to tease him for using big words.
Mm-hmm.
The rail is obviously not a big word, but so when you say the rail, because it just hit me, like I've heard of there's a restaurant called like The Rail.
Yep. Sure.
And they got the cow, whatever. So that's obviously a butcher term.
Yep.
So what exactly does that mean?
So when we slaughter anything, we and one of the things that we talk about is, and as butchers, the part that nobody likes to do is wipe its ass and knock it in the head and take off the hide and get rid of the guts, and
right.
Every piece of meat that you have in front of you, somebody did that.
Yeah.
It's sweaty. It's
not safe work.
It's dangerous. Anyway, we'll get into that. But so once you slaughter it, there's a standard for the industry that you take and you strip away the hide and the head, and the entrails are removed, and you split it typically in half, and you put it on hooks, and then you wheel it into your cooler. Well, it goes onto a roller that hangs, the hook below it on a trolley or a rail.
Gotcha.
So that rail, then you push those carcasses over a scale. And it used to be the old fashioned, you add the blocks and you tap the thing over, and now it's digital or whatever. But yeah, what goes across there is how the farmer gets paid, and how the butcher gets paid. You get paid by whatever your price per pound is for the fee of processing that animal.
Gotcha. So it's
pounds across the rail.
The cleaned up whatever is going to be processed into meat.
Yep, it's the carcass.
Weight on the rail.
It's
Correct.
the carcass.
It's moving along
the
rail.
The weight of the carcass.
Very crucial part of the business.
Yeah.
The rail.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So that
sure.
Sorry,
no problem at all.
Yeah.
And frankly, we don't. We're in it, so we don't always think about all this stuff. But so Craig comes in. I remember the first time I met Craig. He was with his father-in-law, and I would meet the trailer out there, and we would, get the animals off there, and he was about half the size he is now, but he was still pretty big.
No beard.
And no beard. I think he had the high and tight goatee at the time, and you had just married Jess, so whenever
Late
you got
20s,
married,
early mid-20s.
Mid-20s.
Yeah. So I remember joking with him. I was like, you look pretty big, but like you're not going to hold this steer back. So go ahead and throw a chain around that gate.
Yeah, I was behind a gate on the trailer, like I was going to do anything. If the steer wanted to hit the gate. But I didn't know what I was doing.
That's one of the things. Like when you get around big animals, I mean, they're made of muscle, and if it's 1,200 pounds, and even if you're 300 pounds, you're quarter of that thing's weight.
And the strength.
You have no chance.
Nothing close.
Yeah.
Well, Scott, you've also skipped over a lot of severe injuries.
Horrendous injuries.
I mean, yeah.
So that's one of the things, like it's a violent process. Like we've got it systematic, and there's government oversight, and that's a whole nother subject.
Right.
That's a whole nother podcast. Government oversight.
Oh no, I get it.
Yeah.
It's a downer podcast.
That's why I have the Bitcoin coasters. Government oversight.
Right.
It's all ridiculous.
Yeah. And humane handling's become a real hot button in the industry, and that's not anything we ever, even though we've taken thousands of animals to slaughter, we've never abused an animal. Right. We never want to see an animal suffer pain.
Right.
This is an instantaneous process. However, it is violent, and you can't control what an animal is willing to do. Some of them, they will be like deer. They're raised in a pasture for 2 years, and then the guy gets them somehow in his corral, and then you've all of a sudden got to get within a foot of this thing to take its life. Okay, it's not going to be down with that.
Right.
So yeah, all my teeth are fake. Those got blasted out of my mouth.
I'll never forget the day Scott was 15 years old. We were working the kill.
Yeah.
And I don't remember how many we had to do that day, but I remember hearing a commotion in our barn. And he comes walking in. We've got these two big steel doors behind the knock box, and I see the door open. He comes walking in.
The knock box is where
that's where we do the dispatch. Yep. So he comes walking in, and he's walking towards me, and I could see that like half of his lip was hanging clear below the bottom. Like half of his top lip was hanging below the bottom lip.
Oh.
And he comes walking over, and he opens his mouth, and all of his top teeth were pushed straight back in his mouth.
Yeah.
And
my two front, I remember feeling with my roof or my tongue, and I thought that the roof of my mouth had caved in because I felt like a sharp edge clear up under my, clear up in the roof of my mouth. Well, here it was, my teeth had just been put about an inch back further than they are supposed to be.
So there was nothing there.
Yeah, which it could have, it could have drove right in my brain. I could have been a goner right there.
Was it from cattle or was it from
it was a cow, beef.
Holstein.
Yeah, the dirty thing, we had this gate, and it happened in an instant. It had moved up where it was just right in the correct range. So it was maybe 3 feet, and there was a short little gate, and across the top it was handmade, so it was made out of these vertical pipes, and then had a piece of angle iron right across the top, and it, for no reason, just let out a kick, and I was walking right up, and I was actually just leaning down a little bit to fasten the gate. So I had the gate right in front of me, and it kicked the gate, and so maybe I was a foot from the gate, and that piece of angle iron caught me right in the mouth.
Oh.
And with that thing kicking and that gate, swinging, it just never found all the teeth. So anyway, that was one of them. But when you knock an animal,
where were you the next Wednesday?
I was back on the slaughter floor.
Dad cut us no slack.
Yeah. Which Craig can attest to this. So our dad, he got in a motorcycle accident. He's 72 now, so this was 10 years ago when Craig was working with us. So he's 62, still working the slaughter floor.
You said he had injuries in
He was wounded. He
got shot
in Vietnam.
4 times.
Yeah, he's got the Bronze Star with the V device for valor for that day. He was part of a LRP team, a long range reconnaissance patrol team, and I think there was usually 4 of them that were in their team, and they got embedded with a larger group of men, and so there was 18 of them, and he was outranked. Long story short, they got caught in an ambush, and I think all but him and another guy died. But the story reads that he refused morphine and loaded his guys on the helicopter, and he was shot 4 times. So yeah, he's been through more than 9 lives, but he wheeled himself. He was in a motorcycle accident in 2011, coming down the state route, and a vehicle crossed the intersection in front of him. He hit the back of this pickup truck at the bed area. It's spinning it into the other part of the intersection and hit another car, and he went flying through the air, and he broke his kneecap and his hand and whatever else, and he he wheeled himself into the kill floor with
in a wheelchair. I'll never forget. He refused,
no days off.
He's
that kind of guy.
He refused treatment at the ambulance.
Mm-hmm.
Went home, and like 2 hours later, he was like just completely out of it. So mom called me and she's like, "Hey, we need to take Dad to the VA. Would you be willing to do that?" So I did, and we got him up there, and it was like 11 o'clock at night, Cleveland or Brecksville, wherever it was. And I remember going in the waiting room, the emergency room, and we walked up to the counter, and they're like, what are you here for? And I was like, well, Dad was in a motorcycle accident. And they were like, you can't be here. You have to go to Cleveland Metro. So they immediately put him in an ambulance, took him over to Metro.
That's trauma, sir.
That's you need to see. You had some severe trauma. So then 4 a.m. we were coming home after he had X-rays and CAT scans and all that stuff. But yeah, just a tough dude.
So yeah, we were kind of taught that so the injuries and things like that. I mean, when you have that much action, we were doing 15 cattle and 20 pigs and whatever, bison and elk and deer and things in there, and we'll get back to the deer stories, but yeah, you're gonna get banged up. I mean, you knock these things in the head, and Craig can attest to this because I remember when he first started working for him, I'm like, in that conversation, it was literally like, he's like, I'm looking for something else to do, and I'm like, hey, as a matter of fact, we're looking for some more people, want to come check it out, and we're like, you got to work the kill floor day one. That's your break. We're gonna find out. You could be puking. Yeah. We don't know.
I remember. I was thinking. Leading.
You move it around.
Can you hear me?
There you
Is
go.
that good?
There you go.
So leading up to this tonight, I was kind of thinking back, and I remember distinctly because, like they said, the kill floor is where I started working.
Right.
And up until that point, I had hunted and stuff, but I had never taken a knife to a dead animal.
Okay.
It's just a.
That's
a different feeling.
It's an unnatural feeling shoving a knife into something.
You're right against. You're right up against it.
Well, that's what I'll say this real quick. Because there's especially these days, there's a lot of people that are going vegetarian, vegan, and all. And like, if that's what you want to do, that's great. But the one thing I think we even talked, I don't even remember anymore. But it's like when these people that eat meat from a grocery store or something like that, and they're like, oh, these hunters, this.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, where do you think that meat?
They don't have a clue.
Right.
Yeah. And so there's a big difference between one, buying your meat at a grocery store or wherever, and then, like Craig says, like hunting, and then the next step of going, okay, now you have to field dress that deer or whatever it is and clean it out, and then there's a lot of hunters that field dress a deer, but have you ever skinned and processed one? Because that's another step that
So that's where our YouTube channel comes in.
Yeah,
and we'll get to that. Yeah, we'll get to that.
That's fascinating too.
Yeah.
Sorry, Craig.
So I start on the kill floor, and I'm just like overwhelmed. There's blood everywhere. I knew in my mind, theoretically, I knew the process of how it all went down. But I will never forget Fred, their dad, was there. And I'm just kind of like there with my knife and my apron on. Like, what do I do? Like, I don't even know what I'm doing. And I really can't remember exactly what I did, but I think I was just like pulling some hide and just kind of helping skin on the cart that Seth works on. And he's like, yeah, just grab it and cut right there. And it was my mind. I'm like, I can't say no. Like, this dude has been shot in Vietnam. I'm not going to be like, oh no, I'm just this little, this white boy that can't cut meat. And so I didn't even think about it. I just started cutting, and I was like, and that was it from there, And then when I worked, with these guys for the time I did, I was knocking the animals and bleeding them out and stuff, and this is the only job I had such a feeling of accomplishment after the day of slaughter. It was just a strange thing because it's very physical, but I can remember almost every afternoon I would go home and just fall asleep in my chair. Just because mentally, it did something to you mentally. Like, it was just a tremendous amount of, I don't know how to explain it, but the feeling of accomplishment you had after that day was unmatched.
Well, I think I can speak a little bit to that because our dad loves the slaughter floor. And I think it reminds me of combat. I really do. I mean, and not to sort of, put it this way, because men and women that see combat, I get it. These animals aren't
This
shooting
this
at
doesn't
you.
come close.
Right.
Yeah,
right,
we understand that.
But it kind of is a little bit of a, we've got a job to do, and at the end of the day, like Craig's saying, you made an accomplishment in the sense where, these animals you put them in the cooler, converted them to food.
It's a pretty incredible feeling when you walk through the barn, you see pens of cattle and pigs, and then 5-6 hours later, you walk in our cooler and you see them hanging in a row.
All cleaned and dressed,
Yeah, so do you think
ready
there's-
to be food.
So, kind of tying those two together, at least in my mind, like, a lot of people would hear that and go, like, "Oh, that's so that's brutal," and this, but at the same time, like, it's, you hear a lot of hunters, if they're, a hunter that really respects the act of it, and like, there's something special. And I don't say special or incredible, like you guys talk about, like, as
it's a connection.
Yeah, there's something special about like taking that animal's life, not like, oh yeah, I killed this thing. Like, no, it's like there's a, because I like bow hunting, and there's something special about that moment when that happens, and then they dress like field dressing and whatnot, and like it's achievement, but there's happy feelings to it, but then there's also like, oh, I just killed this thing.
Sure.
And it's a very, primal provider feeling too, because then when you sit down, you see your family, eat a meal that you provided for them. It's a very fulfilling, rewarding feeling.
And like you said, Fred, I mean, you could, people say, well, I just go to the grocery store and get it. But, that I think we learned a little bit through the pandemic and things like that too, that,
what are you going to do when it's not in the grocery store?
Pretty well. Yeah. I mean, what if there was this sort of reset and you had to be, drumming up your food? I mean, we're only 200 years removed from that.
Yeah.
So like it's a good skill set to possess, and that's what Seth said with the YouTube. So, quite frankly, when Craig came along, he got involved with this, and it was his outside view that really helped us realize that what we were doing.
Well, he would say, he'd be like, what's your plan? Like, you just always gonna do this,
right?
Like, and we're like, you just need to go home. We didn't want to hear it.
I remember, I remember like in the middle of it when I was working there, I would remember, because I had a decent drive. It was 20-25 minutes to get to work, and every 5 days a week, I had a knife in my hand, and I was either killing animals or cutting meat off a bone. Like, that was my job. And I can remember driving to work most mornings, and like I couldn't like clench my fingers. Like I would drive to work, and I'm like trying to loosen my fingers up because they were so tight and swollen just from cutting meat. And if you shake these guys' hands, you're gonna feel like, dude, what is wrong with your hand? Like, it's just a chunk of meat.
We've been accused of having bratwurst for fingers.
Yeah, yeah, they literally have
some muscle there.
They have muscle tissue in their hands, and I can just remember, I'm like, dude, this is not sustainable. I was like, I can't do this.
What's the long game here?
I was like, I can't do this long term, So like, I learned to appreciate like that. Definitely the hardest job I ever had. But it was a very satisfying job at the same time, because it was, I don't like jobs. I never like jobs where you can't like see what you've accomplished, and kind of going back a little bit to what you were saying with the slaughtering of animals. The one thing that I really learned from these guys and actually seen, and I talk to vegans, I talk to vegetarians all the time, and I don't argue with them, it's whatever you believe is fine with me. But if you kill a steer and you hang it up on a rail, that whole animal is muscle. And I believe God created those animals for us to sustain life. And anytime we slaughtered animals, anytime these guys slaughtered animals, it was with respect, and it was as fast as we could get it done to get them, we didn't want that animal to suffer. And so I look at those steers, I'm like, dude, they're nothing but muscle. They're nothing but meat. They're not going to trot down the road and pull a wagon. You're not going to hop on their back and ride them. What are they made for? Well, they're meat. They're to sustain life.
Well, when an animal is born, and there's this saying: the best way to save any animal from extinction is start eating it, because bison are a testament to that. And we have a YouTube video, and I can't recall all the facts, but bison were nearly extinct, and there was a conservation effort.
The part that you said where they were created.
Well, people didn't like that when I said they were created by
didn't evolve
by God.
Yeah, they didn't like that. So.
And that's kind of what we'll get into with a little bit of the social media stuff. But yeah, so you're either, as a cow, like Craig's saying, they're not pulling wagons and things like that. And, I understand there's an industry behind it. And now with bison, it's literally saving them because there's a nation of people that are eating the meat. So, more people are involved in the process of ranching. The breeding programs are developed, et cetera, et cetera. There's a demand, So anyway, but with cattle or pigs or whatever, when the animal's born, in the wild, it would have very limited choices. It's predation, starvation. You could say, well, let it live to an old age. Well, then it's going to be one of those two at an old age. Right. Animals. Mm-hmm. So raising the animal ethically and taking it in the prime of its life in an instant is the best way, in my opinion, to honor that animal.
And then like what to Craig's point, where you turn it into food where they were made for that purpose, to feed you protein.
And protein, every cell in our body uses protein. So absolutely. I mean, it's an absolute resource.
The full circle.
And even talking about the carnivore diet and things like that, Dr. Sean Baker wrote a book called The Carnivore Diet, and there's some people that have healed some serious medical problems, and that debunks a lot of the stuff too about cow farts and things like that, and how if you read some of that stuff, and there was like something like 60 million bison that were on this continent at one time. Yeah, that's a lot of farts. And so
and those are big animals.
So when Craig was working with this, we were getting this, because we had been we'd been raised in it, and even on the farm, we did a little bit of butchering. We hunted deer and things like that. So we've been raised in it, and we didn't see, but it was good for us because it started to give us this third-person view of what we were doing, and we started.
We like to call him an angel.
I told him that once. I was like, "Hey, if you're an angel, I don't have to pay you, right?"
I think he looks more like Moses.
Yeah.
If I had to guess. Well, go real quick. Going back to the the animals and how they kind of exist. I think a lot of people, especially in today's age, they think that like these majestic animals, like they grow old and then they retire with all their grandkids and they fall asleep one day and that's all it is. Well, like as soon as an animal gets older,
nature is metal.
Nature is very metal. Like, as soon as an animal gets old enough to where it's like the rest of the herd's like,
they'll leave it behind.
Leave it behind,
or they'll kill it.
You look at like
something's going to eat it eventually.
Yeah, or you look at like the buffalo in like Africa, like they will actively kill parts of their own herd because or they'll like just damage them just enough to be like, oh, there's lions here, you're the weakest, Bill, so we're gonna put some hurt on you,
we're leaving you behind.
So the lions get you. Like, so it's one of those things where I understand that there is some absolute like animal cruelty that goes on within like the farming industry, but like if these animals are humanely raised and butchered and all these things, like they're going to die one way or the other. And why not allow them to live a decent life while they are living
and sustain human life.
Right.
Right. Exactly.
If you just want the steers and cows to die in the wild, that's okay. But then they're just going to be eaten by possums and buzzards.
Right. And then same thing is bears. Like people are like, oh, we'll let the bears and the mountain lions and cougars do their thing. Well, okay. I'm cool with that, but I hope you have some guns to protect yourself and your dogs and your kids.
There's
and everything
10,000 mountain lions out your back door, and they decide that your dog is a tasty treat.
Right.
Wolves.
Now, if you've seen bison interact with cars, it doesn't end well for the car.
Not at all.
Yeah. So here we are. We're butchering away, and we're kind of all sort of in the same boat, if you will. And Craig realized that that's not a boat he wanted to be in much longer, but it was really good for us because, like I said, we get that third person view, and it is just funny how God works because everything's kind of gone full circle in a way. But we worked together for about 18 months, and the whole, so when you're on the floor, unless the saw is screaming through bone, which would make most people run
of the time
in the other direction anyway. Which, I mean, that's even once the darn thing's knocked in the head and you got that part done, you got to cut it up with a scary saw.
There's nothing easy
and
about
then you
it.
have your knife, this far from your hand, which, people could say wear the gloves and everything like that. But we just, whatever. We're too stubborn and set in our ways for that. But we talk a lot because we're around a table like this, and it's just what you do. And so, we started to spawn off ideas, and Craig has what I would say is a really uncanny sense for, reading situations, even reading people. And he'd ask objective questions like, why aren't you thought about doing it this, or like, hey, like Seth said, what's the mission objective here? Like, you're just gonna do this until you're, and like you look around, and you're like, yeah, there's plenty of people in the industry that are like 65, and like they just, and our dad, God bless him, but that was what
he didn't always like that, because all of a sudden it's like
they say General
they're
Patton,
thinking we can't let them think. Things are gonna change when they start
what's
thinking.
Wrong with butchering cow?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, they say General Patton was a wartime general, and he would have never made it in peacetime. That's kind of how our dad was. He was a survivalist guy. Like, the fight is on, you don't think, you just charge, and But we had gotten to the point, and even with Craig involved, it was like, we need to kind of reevaluate the program here in a sense, because we have a very good business. And it was a little bit of an eye opener with Craig, and we had his two brother-in-laws working with us at a time, and they're like, this is just kind of the road to nowhere, so to speak. In our industry, it's a lot of work for little pay too. I mean, you're dealing with agriculture and farming as it were, and there's not a lot of money in that, so it's like you can't really get it out of the farmer. It's like getting water from stone, so you're pretty much set.
Real quick, I think that's what it just hit me when you talk about, like, a lot of things are, before we started the podcast, we talked, this is the first time with our new table, and all
we gotta make sure we rub it a lot and get our oil in there.
But like, it's one of the, you think about, like, there's so many things that in our world now that are, done by robots or done by mechanics. And, I realized, like, doing this table, and I do a lot of other things. I like make knives and different things. So, like, I understand, like, making something that's like custom it's a lot of work.
It's an art too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a skill.
And like, it would take a heck of a robot to be able to fully butcher an animal, because the lines that you have to, like, everything's a little bit different.
I'm glad you said that. Yeah.
You can't just, like, set up a robot and say, here, this is how you do it.
And one of the things, I don't know if it was on the podcast before that, you said, Fred, was, start to finish, taking an animal from livestock to a finished package is something that, a robot can't do. Maybe there's a certain point in the process where mechanically it could be done, but then having one person with the skill set to do that all, because our industry has become segmented in the fact where one sort of group of individuals will work this portion, like the slaughter, or even just a section of the slaughter, and then onto the processing, and then the further fabrication, et cetera, et cetera. And then that's often just one species. But with Seth and I, we have the ability to do, from livestock to finished package, which includes not just raw meats, but processed meats like, sticks and jerky and things that require, a lot more processing.
And hot dogs and
and we're able to do that across about 7 different species. Very well.
Yeah.
So
and
that
the
would be
butchering
like
of that's an art in itself.
Yeah.
That we
So,
guys do. That's
but we were doing that. So we were doing that, as a business model, and we're doing a lot of it. And at the same time, we had our small store there, so we would buy animals that like from his father-in-law, butcher them, put them in our retail store, and it was one morning. It was a Wednesday morning before the slaughter, and this was in 2011, 2012, and Seth and I were in the office, kind of waiting for the day to start or whatever, because we got to wait for a meat inspector and everything to show up.
So, but before that, if we back up just a little bit, Craig was always really good at instigating different types of.
You could just leave it at instigating.
Well, he's an instigator. So, but he,
I can see that.
It's not a bad thing, Craig.
He loved competitions. So he talked about when he was on probation, or as a probation officer, not on
When you-
probation,
I've-
not
I
on
was gonna say,
probation.
I haven't heard that
As a probation
Well,
officer.
you told us
I'm not
we never
dead
did a
yet.
background check.
Yeah, wait.
Yeah.
You said you were a
Life
probation
isn't over yet.
officer,
Yeah.
Craig.
You never know.
I can only understand it if I'm both sides of the cell.
Hey,
So while he was a probation officer, he talked about, with the other people in the office, he would have weight loss competitions or, all kinds of stuff. So we were just, Scott talked about, when the saw shuts off and the floor's quiet and everybody's just standing there boning meats, like you talk about something. Well, I think it was actually Craig's idea because he's like, hey, let's start a beard growing competition.
So you can go the longest
see him
without trimming their
go
beard.
the longest
As you
without
can see,
shaving.
he's,
I think
he's
Craig
still
will.
not. He's
Yeah,
not
that was
seated
like
yet.
back in 2012.
Yeah.
He hasn't
The
trimmed
worst part
since.
was
Yeah.
we had to wear a beard net.
Yeah.
Yes.
It wasn't even a great
how many?
idea.
Now the
No.
question is how many beard nets does it take to cover that?
Yeah.
I don't think that would fit now.
He's gonna wear like a shower
Yeah.
cap.
Yeah, wearing a beard net, having
Terrible
having
idea.
the strings around your ears,
Yeah.
cutting into your ears, it's not
Getting
great.
incredibly hairy while
Yeah.
you're working food processing is
Yeah.
probably about the worst thing you could do.
Which we had people
do this with our feet.
we had we had customers that would not as much customers, but like some USDA inspectors would come in and they'd question why we had the facial hair and stuff like
Right.
that. So we did get some resistance there, but it was going really well. And we're like 4 dudes because his brother-in-law Daniel was working for us at the time, and Daniel could grow a really good beard. So
And the right color.
in the red, wrong. It was red. It was that pitiful red.
I'm
color.
outmanned here, so I better keep my mouth
I have
shut.
red. I have red in mine,
Yeah.
so it's mixed in. It's starting to get combat from the gray now,
Yeah.
but it is what it is.
So we started the beard competition, and then you can take off back where you were.
Yeah, so it was in full, swing. We're growing. We're not shaving or anything like that. Mustaches, everything. We're looking ridiculous, and
you learn
Seth-
how hard it is to eat food when your mustache is covering your entire
yeah.
mouth.
yeah. Seth sits down, and he makes a Facebook group called Northeast Ohio Facial Hair Club because beards were they were kind of trendy at
It
the
was
time.
the thing to do.
Yeah, and so he's like, oh. So at the time,
How'd that go,
In
guys?
his
I'm not repeating
in his
that.
35 seconds of spare time.
Exactly. It's like, what
Right?
else do you do with your 5 minutes?
Let's make a
while
beard club.
you're, getting ready to slaughter. So we do that, and we said, well, now we have a club. We got to have meetings. So we started holding these meetings. Some
Beard
real
meetings?
weirdos
Oh,
showed
yeah.
up.
There may have even been some women with beards that came.
We had a meeting and like 40 guys showed up with beards.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my gosh.
I
Yeah.
didn't,
Which,
didn't intend for this to happen.
yeah, that's kind of a whole nother story. But
They were fun. I mean, we had a good time.
we learned
Yeah.
that
Everyone
guys
in the
would.
restaurant's like, what is
Yeah.
this?
So
They're not Amish.
it's
They
very
have mustaches.
yeah,
What's
very
going on?
eclectic group. But Craig, he's like, and so the brand, the spice, this is kind of where this all comes in. So
Which I did bring a 6-pack for Fred, so that Tony, this one's for you.
Yeah,
Appreciate
mine's
that.
upstairs.
Thank
yeah.
you.
So we gotta hold
Absolutely.
up for
yeah,
the cameras.
Yeah.
if nobody else talks here, I'm going to talk through this whole darn thing. So
Well, you're
jump
doing
in
a
here.
great
Well,
job.
I'll jump in and say, like we said, the spices are, at least the ones I've had so far, are phenomenal. Craig, who knows you guys the best out of all of us here, didn't even realize that some of the spices you guys had are in there. You guys have so many.
I just use the black.
he's like, I just like
He just
use
finds
buckets of
something
it.
and sticks with it.
He literally buys
it
it
7 pounds.
4-pound bucket.
4 pounds?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I buy
Yeah.
4 pounds at a time.
It's so crazy too, because I remember like reading it. It's like, oh, it's like 6 or 7 ingredients. That's it.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Nothing you can't
okay,
pronounce, right?
yeah, like
Yeah.
all right. Well, man, it's just there's something about it.
Our mission objective now is pretty much we make meat better. So one of the and that includes the butchering process and the spicing process. But at the time, Seth had a recipe for a spice, and I think it had sort of a baseline.
It
but
had like some
different
meat
stuff in it. And it's
tenderizer
like,
and
that's
sugar and stuff like
that's
that.
not going to work. So he started, literally getting bulk spices, paprika, garlic powder, salt. It always begins with salt, and mix them together. And he came up with a rub in the butcher shop that was really good. And so we started putting on like the different things that were going in our store. We thought should be pre-seasoned, like, the pork shoulder for, pulled pork and stuff like that being one of them.
Well,
And-
just hold up for 1 second.
Sure.
We had these containers that when we did custom meat processing would hold slices of liver. So it's like
Yeah,
this
you
little
get your cow butcher to get the liver.
Yeah,
back.
you get a little white container. It's got a snap-on lid. So when I started mixing the seasonings, I would put them in those little containers and just throw a sticker on it and just put blend or whatever. And then people that I knew were coming in the store that I knew they were going to be smoking a brisket that weekend or pork butts or something like that, and just give them a container. Well, then they started coming back 2 to 3, 4 weeks later, like, hey, you got any more of that stuff? So there's enough times of that. Yeah, enough times of that happened. And then at that point, we were like, all right, this is something that we need to really take advantage of.
And so our dad had, since he got out of the military, had always been bearded. So Craig's suggestion. He's like, hey, why don't you make up like a sticker and it'll say bearded butcher approved. And you like literally
Did your dad approve of the seasonings though?
The really odd thing is,
why
like
do you need to
he's like a
season the
salt
meat?
and pepper guy.
Yeah. He's old school.
Right
Yeah, that's him.
This is him. So we're like, yeah. As a matter of fact, that's a darn good idea, Craig. You're full of them, full of these good ideas. So he's
like, I'm full of something.
We took a picture of our dad that you see right here, and Craig's wife Jessie is pretty good with Photoshop, and she, a couple clicks and whatever, she turns it into, it's a literal photo of us, standing. We were actually deer hunting at the time, and she took it and just like changed it into a caricature.
Right.
And we get some font, it says bearded butcher over the top, it says approved, and then we got these little circle stickers made. So if the packaged meat had that spice on it, it got that sticker. If it was the tub that Seth's giving away, or people are starting to want to buy it, we figured out we could stack it on the shelf. It get that sticker.
Well, I'll tell you what, the name branding of that was phenomenal, because I know, it's probably been 4 years ago now, Tony, roughly. So we, like I told you guys before we started, all this kind of started from music, and we started like he writes the songs, I put some music to it, and we started like recording some stuff. We played, a show or here and there, and it was like, well, we have to have like a name.
Mm-hmm.
So like he had a bigger beard than he did now, and I didn't, but I made knives. He was like, well, I got a beard, you make knives. He was like, so we said the beard and butcher. And we're like, okay, sure. And then someone
probably
was like,
a good thing you didn't use the name.
well, we use like the beard and butcher, and they're like, someone's like, well, there's someone that's the bearded butcher, right? And I'm
2
like,
miles away.
I'm like, I was like, what do you mean?
You'd
They're
probably
like,
gotten a letter from our attorney.
Oh, people were like, yeah,
Cease and desist.
yeah. And it was like, I was like, I've never heard of it. And then like from then on, it was like, I heard more and more and more, and it was like, that's.
Well, that's funny you say that, and I'll bring that up because
what's crazy though is we launched the name Bearded Butcher, and we didn't do any of our research on whether the name was available.
We just started,
and we just launched it.
Yeah,
and thank God we went through the right steps to get it trademarked after the fact.
Yeah, that came after, because with anything, it's like you
don't know it's going to work.
Yeah,
so it's like, why put money into it?
It's going to be a Facebook page,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's like the biggest thing we got out of it was I put a sticker on my guitar that has some meat cleavers.
Hey, get that guitar.
You still have a Bearded Butcher sticker? You still have a Bearded Butcher sticker on your guitar?
You got to play. You got to play.
It doesn't say bearded.
How much you want for it?
It's not Bearded Butcher. It's different.
Yeah.
It's different.
Yeah. So.
Only joking.
2011, 2012 or whatever, and we're kind of all doing the thing, and the store, it's getting busier and busier. People buying the spice, and the thing spice with spice, whatever, and so we had the Northeast Ohio facial hair thing going on. So we're meeting for these things. We're just kind of having a good old time, working the entire time. So 2013, Craig kind of realizes that, this isn't for me anymore. And
he hadn't quite seen the progression that he was hoping.
Yeah, he hadn't advanced from, he was like, wow, we do this every day, all day.
It wouldn't have mattered what you did. I needed the gym.
Yeah.
Well, that's
nothing
true.
against
That's
you.
true.
He had a dream.
If
And
you would put two
it wouldn't have mattered.
Carcasses on the end of a barbell,
Yeah.
you'd be like, oh, okay, maybe.
We used to lift on the kill floor.
We did that.
Dude. Yeah.
I'm assuming that was
serious
after everything was out before, and
it wasn't.
it was before it was
clean,
sanitized.
Yeah, it was incredible. We went through a 531 program there one time, and we were just going crazy. Yeah, literally, we would meet and
we'd lift at 4:35 in the morning
Yeah,
on
'cause
Saturday.
the butchering, it starts super early and it lasts a long time. So we would just get up earlier and we'd be deadlifting. I remember Craig had two 200-pound
PR.
plates. He does still hold the PR. He was I think he did
5:15.
Yeah,
It's the heaviest deadlift on the kill floor, I think.
Right.
That's not a bad PR.
Not bad.
That's
not for
terrible.
5 a.m.
Yeah.
Yes.
And in the middle of a butcher kill floor.
Yeah. He had 200-pound plates and a that what was it, like a Texas deadlift bar. And that's we'd start warming up at 225, and anyway at 5 a.m. in the morning. I'm surprised our spines didn't blow apart, but we progressed to the point where our store was getting busier and busier. Craig had moved on. We're still in close contact with him, and then his brother-in-law.
Well, there was a point where we actually we almost hated Craig because we loved him so much we hated him.
Yeah.
After
he was saying the things that we needed to hear too about some of the work that we were doing, things like that.
Most
like,
often the things that you don't want to hear.
Yeah. So and it was like at a point where in 2015 we're just like, you know what, let's just jump out of the hamster wheel in a sense. So we're not going to stop butchering, but we're going to stop custom butchering. We're going to change that business model,
which was a big risk.
Yeah, so
you go from
financial.
You go from 20
risk.
years of that. You know, the very thing that carried you through those dark
all your
years.
customers that
that you built over all those years, and then Dad. You know, that was his whole deal.
Yeah.
And then to just get to the point where you say, we're not going to do this anymore.
Do you understand what they mean by that? They went from, so when they talk about custom butchering, a lot of their income came from Billy Bob down the road bringing his Holstein cow in. You cut it up, and then they come in and pay you for the processing and take it home. And so they just one time said no.
Yeah.
All we're cutting up now is stuff we're selling in the store.
Yeah.
And we can't bring your Holstein cow in here anymore.
Yep. And we had a schedule, and I did the scheduling. So it was 2015. And we realized, we're just not going to find the skilled help that we need. We don't really want to go through all the training process, everything again. So we're just going to, we get a call and we'd say, we're scheduling through the end of the year. And we did our best to accommodate a few people. We we didn't just turn the faucet off immediately, but we had this.
We felt like we owed it to some,
True.
Some of Dad's acquaintances, things like that. But
sure.
And it wasn't very well received by many.
I can
see
it.
We were told, because people relied on us for our quality of workmanship. So when that was going to affect their business. So if they had a customer that really liked the way we did something, all of a sudden that goes away. Well, then their business is in jeopardy too.
Right.
So we heard a lot that you guys are never going to make it. You're going to fail.
Like, why did you do that? Obviously, I can see at least in my mind, the glaring is, hey, we want to go. Everything is focused on what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can sell the product and everything else. But what was the
the big thing is that as we saw that we're getting into our late 20s, early 30s, even into the 30s or whatever, you realize that you're working a lot, but you're not making any money.
Pennies.
You're making about $10
at the
an
time.
hour
We had
down.
little kids at the time, and so then it just wasn't something we were willing to see them have to go through.
And you can't. We were the most expensive in the county, but you can't. You can't.
Well,
just
that's
go
part
a
of
dollar a pound over everybody else.
That was part of Craig's advice too when he came in, because he was like, "Hey guys," he's like, "Raise your," because we
you're charging
we had raised prices in 10 years
to do a whole cow. Like that's
And you think about you compare trades and you think of a plumber or whoever, and you're like, well, I pay $225 a month for my cable television, or a plumber charges me $75 a month, and here we are, in our 30s with 3 small children making $12 an hour. $12 an hour on a single income.
So up until this point, you're essentially just providing a service.
That's it.
Just providing
100% of service industry.
Right.
Yep. And you're never really gaining ground.
Right. No. And that service is, I can imagine with, butchering animals and processing animals where you can get away if you're not as good as you guys are, which I'm going to say that because I've seen your stuff and I understand your work. So even if you're not you could be like almost as good or kind of as good, but people are still getting their meat back when you're
as long as you get it in a package. Yep,
right.
chop
So they're
it,
like,
chop it, get it
this is
packaged.
good. But if you can provide the service and the product all in one house, because like you guys have talked about, you take it from the live animal, you put the bowl in it, put it, and then through the butcher, and then you're selling the meat as well. You're providing everything from beginning to end. Every single stage of that process is no longer, you don't have to be upcharged, but you can still pass on the product at the end to the customer. So that's obviously where the profit is. You guys have to make a profit.
You do.
Right.
Well, and there's some processors around the country that obviously do very poor work, but they're at this point in day and age, they're always going to be busy because there's a huge demand for it.
Oh,
it's like, well, where do I go? I can't go to the guy that's good. I wish I could, but I can't do it myself. I'm going to take it to whoever I can.
Right.
The animal's getting fatter staying in my pasture. I got to do something with it.
Right.
So,
which is sad. I think to me, I mean, maybe not sad for you guys, but it's sad for me because it's like, man, like, why wouldn't those people like, hey, maybe I should, learn this. Maybe I won't be good for
this
a while,
this is where our YouTube channel comes in because we felt like we didn't want to just give up on people. So at that point, we were like, if we're no longer going to offer the process, let's educate the public on how to do it themselves.
Yeah, and I want to say, I'll start this out because I saw a video where actually she mentioned it to me, and then I saw it a little bit later. The post you guys had where there was some folks in Papua New Guinea.
Yes.
That they just sent you they're like, hey, like we found your videos. We, during COVID, like we weren't able to bring people in to teach, this. And I understand if people don't know how small Papua New Guinea is and where it's at and the culture there, go look it up and understand what all this means. But like you guys could talk to
that was
one of the most remarkable things that I've seen.
That was a very humbling experience because I'll never forget I when I saw that post and thankfully I saw it because we have a guy that actually handles a lot of our comments and stuff and he works for us, but so I don't always see all the stuff that's sent to us on social media. So I saw that one and it was like it was I mean, like it brought me to tears because it's like when you think about the effect that you've had on somebody's life, especially across the world, that you had no idea that
tell the story. That's an awesome story.
Go for it.
Yeah. So the context for the story is there's a group of butchers in Papua New Guinea that didn't have the resources like Fred talked about, whether COVID or whatever, people couldn't travel and train them. So they have access to the internet somehow, and they Googled, stuff about butchering, and we popped up.
Can you?
I don't have.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't have any service down here.
So as a result, we popped up, and I'll kind of speak to that because it is by the grace of God, but it wasn't necessarily by accident that we've become the leading authority on Google with regard to butchering.
Right.
So with regard to the outreach, I mean, you don't ever really know who you're reaching, and that's kind of one of the great things about the internet.
Can you go to our Instagram page?
Is you don't know whose eyes are going to fall on this, and
one of the great and worst things about the internet, you never
right?
know who's going to find what you're putting out
so
there,
that's the other thing.
It can get a little scary at times.
I believe.
Yeah, and with regard to,
did we mention we like guns? Lots of guns.
I mean, you feel you have to. I mean, if you live in Wayne County, you have to.
And so, but I think it's really hard to hate what you see because, for one, it's we're authentic because it's what we do.
Right.
And the other one is like Craig mentioned. We do it as respectfully as it can be done, and with such a high level of skill that we're certainly we should be the epitome of what butchering should look like,
right?
Not the other way around where you talk about animal cruelty and things like that. So we've largely escaped scrutiny from the internet, which is great. We mostly get very positive feedback.
Right.
And to your point, Fred, a little bit about it's sad that more resources aren't available, for people that raise animals, because 50, 60 years ago, there was a butcher shop in, many small towns and things like that, but it's kind of gone the way of the dairy industry, where it's become so consolidated now that you have these large packing houses, and they've got, largely people from different ethnic backgrounds, because they're a little more accustomed to, working for very little money.
Just go up just a little bit.
I think
That's right.
Seth's got it there.
Yep,
yeah,
right
there we go. So the caption reads, guys, I
Let me
need
throw
to
that on the
say a
screen
big
too.
thank you and acknowledge the use of your videos as training tool for my very small, very isolated team here in New Britain Island in Papua New Guinea. We're the only slaughterhouse and butcher shop on the island, so the boys operate in a vacuum. I am not a butcher by trade, so need to rely on external training coming in. Since the start of last year, we have had no visiting trainers. So to help, I turned to Mr. Google and found you guys. Today, I run a training for them under the video. And my stupid contacts are blurring up. The boys were stoked. I could like to share some photos with you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So
and we don't know the nationality of the gentleman who wrote it.
Yeah,
right. So for people who aren't watching this, maybe you should just to check this section out real quick. But it's super cool to see. So it looks like a bunch of natives of Papua New Guinea, and they have just a spread of cuts out there.
And they did a good job.
Looks
really
good.
Yeah. So like the fact that you're literally reaching and helping, not only because you see six people here do this, but the people that they're helping by their skill that they're learning by doing this, literally halfway across the world.
How many people is just that table going to feed?
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's not only the people that they're learning a skill by watching, you guys put on the product, and it's on YouTube. Like, you're not charging anything.
Free.
Like, it's incredible information. And then they're literally probably feeding just villages and cities.
Yep.
Like just thousands of people. It's
awesome.
We
We had no idea.
And just with regard to, being a vegan, Papua New Guinea, you can probably eat all kinds of vegetation, stuff like that. But like feeding, there's no more dense nutritional product than that muscle, that protein. Right. So we've always said, like if shit hits the fan, nobody's planting a garden. They're going to try to kill something and eat it,
I'm gonna do both.
Well, yeah, you should. Yeah. We talked about.
I'm a terrible hunter.
Okay.
I'm a worse gardener, but we have a garden, so I can try.
Well, we did a video on one of the most resourceful animals you could
plant
have.
a garden to bring the deer into your garden. Shoot the deer.
That's good call. I got a bunch of rabbits back there too. I'll eat them if I have to.
Is a goat, because you can just keep the goat around. You can mow your lawn, and then you can butcher. She wants that. Cassie
but she wants those little tiny goats that just jump on everything. That's all she wants.
Hey, you get hungry enough, that goat you're gonna take the goat before
where's your little dog that was just in here?
Yeah, those pygmy goats are bigger than that dog.
Well, and that's one of the things. Like America is a really well-fed lion right now, in the sense like you don't have to worry about we have obviously the social distress, the political distress, et cetera, but we're not worried about where our next meal's coming from.
We did see a scare though back in March of 2020.
Well, yeah, to that point, but things got really dicey, if you've shot an animal, it gets on the ground, like I gotta convert this thing into food. That can
just
hopefully
walk up and grab your ribeye out of it. No big deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's the biggest thing. As these last couple of years have really shown me that where I've talked about before where I didn't grow up. I grew up with a garden. My mom's a big gardener. But I didn't grow up like a hunter or anything.
Sure.
I've learned that from my in-laws. I will never say I'm a great hunter. I really love bow hunting. That's what I really enjoy doing, but I'm not good at it.
Yeah.
Like I get lucky every once in a while, essentially. Like I can shoot a bow really well.
And it's a lot cheaper than therapy.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's quiet. Like that's like one of the biggest things, but like, and I've learned to skin and field dress and skin and get a couple steaks and burger out of a deer, but if you like the normal person in America, like I harp on this, and people who listen to this regularly probably are tired of me saying it. Like we are so, I hate to use the word privileged, whatever it is. Like in America, the normal person doesn't understand what it takes to keep them alive on a daily basis.
No.
They don't understand, like, their food, their all these, even their electricity. I mean, even I'm guilty of it. Like, you know, I've spent a lot of time in places without electricity, like in different things, but like the electricity goes off. What do you do? The first thing you walk in a room, you flip the light switch. You're like, you dumb son of a bitch. Like, I knew the power is off, you know, but you know, people, they don't understand that their fridge goes off, and it's like, what? Hey, they're calling the power company. Hey, my ice cream's melting. What's going on?
Yeah.
You know, and if something were to happen, and I won't go too crazy in your hair, Tony, but if
This
like
is a rabbit hole for sure.
no, I won't go down the.
No, I get it.
Something simple as, and theoretically possible, is like a solar flare. Shuts the electricity off around the world.
You thought COVID was bad.
You thought, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. Like, America's a well-fed lion. Wait till that bitch gets hungry. You know, we're all, you know, it's.
I feel like half the population be dead by then. But
yeah.
you know, but that's the point, is being able to, you know, have a skill like you, and not only have a skill like you guys have, but doing it well.
The problem is that we're going to have food, but everybody else is going to know you have food.
That's why you got a lot of guns.
That's why you got the guns.
So you know, we weren't entrepreneurs in any sense. We were, you know, we just never really thought outside the box.
Right.
Well, Craig helped us with that a lot, and you know, he
I
went off.
remember I think it was the first week I was there. I didn't, you know, these guys would go home for lunch, and I was just eat my lunch in the shop, and they would lock the door. And I would sit at the table in the retail store and eat my lunch, and there were people come up to the door and like pull on it was locked, and I was like, after like 2 or 3 days, I was like, you guys are losing money. I was like, why don't you teach me how to run the register so like we can just keep the store open? So it's just stuff like
we
that.
haven't eaten lunch since, Craig.
Yeah, it was just,
appreciate that.
And I was like, see ya, good luck with the lunch.
Well, all we could think about it was like, gosh, we got to get these animals cut today. If I don't lock the door, I won't get a lunch. I'll have to work without lunch.
And that was done previously to when we acquired the business. So it was just
it's just something we did,
yeah.
and you know, retail wasn't our focus. It was like, you know, hey, we sell meat out of the front of the store, and you know, but the big thing we got to get done is get these animals chopped up today. So we 2015 we said, you know, this is the really narrow picture of how things can be done. So we didn't add, you know, we didn't schedule anything for 2016. We're just going to come in here and we're going to, you know, we're going to give it everything we can to make this a go, in the sense of we're going to leverage this spice that we've been working on, because by this point we're putting a label on it. It's got the, you know, it's far, you know, it's evolved well beyond this little, you know, white, you know, tub with a sticker.
Right,
and we're working on, and we've got a Facebook page, and you know, we'll Instagram or whatever. And so we're gonna branch out. And we're gonna make 3 more spices. So we have our dad, and we're gonna make that the original blend, and then we're gonna go ahead and put our brother on one of them, our oldest brother, and make that a blend. And then we're gonna put Seth on one of them, make that a blend, and I'll put myself on one and make that a blend.
But little did we know that the social media channels that we used, we'd already built a Facebook page for a Northeast Ohio Facial Hair Club. So we saw how well that was received.
Right.
So we started getting good at social media. So it's like, okay, well, let's just create other pages based on, you know, our spices to get them sold, basically.
Yeah. So we didn't have any. I mean, I talked about the education, 5 years, 7 years. You know, we knew a heck of a lot about cutting meat, but we didn't know anything about marketing. But thankfully, you know, our education was very fundamental in the sense we knew how to spell correctly, things like that. And, you know, Craig was helping us out with math, because he was saying, hey, you know, when you realize that you
realize
don't
you're not,
have
but I
enough in
feel
your
like Craig
paycheck.
can only count by 45.
Well, that's true. But he's like, you know, when you make a certain amount, and then, you know, you have a family you're raising or whatever, and you get to the next week and you make that same amount again, like, you're not really gaining ground, you know. So we had pretty much kind of, it was an all or nothing thing. So we're gonna make our brand. We're gonna build awareness for the. It wasn't really a brand at the time, because I mean, with anything that starts, as getting your name out there. I mean, Craig has said this before. He's like, it's how many pounds of the stuff you got to sell to be profitable. It starts with an ounce of this stuff, and one customer, one follower, et cetera. But we're going to throw everything we can at it.
I have to chime in because I think 2 or 3 years ago, I was like, how much seasoning can you sell to make a living?
Jars.
And clearly,
jars of seasoning.
I still call it jars.
Yeah.
I used to say, how many jars you got to sell to make money, blah, blah, blah. Well, they have endlessly proved me wrong in the last
I feel like
6 months. So
we make sure that
you're the one buying some of those jars.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Buckets.
Buckets. Oh, yeah, buckets now, not even jars.
I'm a legit supporter.
He is.
I am happy with their success, but they have proved me wrong.
But here's the thing.
Thousands of times.
We needed that,
But we needed that because we actually we set out to prove Craig wrong.
They did.
Yeah, and that was like our motive.
But you have to understand, we had no luxury, so to speak, like we might have now, in the sense that there was no brand awareness, so we had to build it. So we started doing whatever festival thing we could get in. We're paying our way into these things, can we come, sample our spices, et cetera, et cetera. And we had a plan to increase the capacity of our retail offerings. So, which we had been doing that anyway, but we were kind of bookending the work because it's like, well, we got to cut our own stuff, but we got to cut other people's stuff. So like that takes priority. So we're kind of bookending it or whatever. So I guess we set around to be like more entrepreneurs at the sense. It's no longer just, the person calls, you put them on the schedule that works there, whatever. So we spent 2016, all the spring and summer we went to the Wayne County Ribbon Music Festival and, gave samples to drunk people and
never made any money.
No, it was pretty much a wash, but was building brand awareness. And then of course the social media stuff, we had, in our pocket is, I think we had Android phones early on and those sucked. We got iPhones, it's like, well, just turn this thing in front of yourself and start talking and you document what you're doing. And if people like it, they'll respond accordingly. And so we started picking up, a few Instagram, Facebook followers. Didn't really have a YouTube presence at all. I think we did one video on just like a walkthrough of our like a meat plant tour, and we put it on YouTube in like I think March of 2016.
Had like 5 subscribers.
Yeah. So, but as the year progressed, we got down to the fall, and it's like, hey, we no longer butcher deer, but Seth hunts, I hunt. He actually. We reached out to Fin Feather Fur Outfitters in Ashland, and we're like, hey, we want to get our spices in there or whatever, but we think it'd be a really good idea if we like put on this live demonstration of cutting up a deer carcass. Like people are going to like that. Yeah. And so we had it scheduled for a Friday. Seth was during bow season in October. He shot a deer, and we had, had it in the cooler ready to go, whatever. And they pulled the plug on us. It was a Friday, and they're like, we're not sure how well it'll be received, and
75
it's too
degrees,
warm out, et cetera.
There's going to be flies.
Yeah.
What are people going to think?
So we just
I get it. They have a image to kind of...
who are these guys anyway? Like we're gonna let them set up in our parking lot, chop up a
deer. It'd be like, like you guys want to, want to come back and do it?
We did.
Nah.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah,
we did actually come back for 2 or 3 consecutive years, and we did that. But anyway, cool. That first year though, we had this deer. And it's like, well, we got to do something with this thing. So we did one video. I didn't even hold the camera in a horizontal position. It was in vertical position, and I just said it was it was
a crappy video.
It was the live video on Facebook of Seth chopping up this deer. We were interrupted. Some guy, hey, but I don't even think we talked about the spices, but we were just, this is what we do. This is how you cut up a deer or whatever.
Well, didn't at one point Craig actually say you guys should have a YouTube channel because we were making videos, but we were putting them on Facebook. And a little bit. Because
I don't know if I said YouTube or not because I didn't understand how YouTube even made money.
Yeah.
But I think I did. I remember saying, look, all these other butchers nationwide don't even know what the internet is.
Right.
I said, you guys are smart enough.
I still don't know.
And you have the skill.
Well,
like you should be able to monetize this somehow.
Here's the opportunity.
That's one thing about our success is the internet was cold open for butchers.
There's no butchers on the internet.
There was nobody. They were just stuck.
Does that.
They were stuck in the same rut we were in.
It was like that straight stretch of road in the Funk Bottoms with not a soul in sight.
Yeah.
And you know there's no cops on duty.
You put the
and it
pedal
was
to the
like,
metal and
yeah.
just go
But
straight.
here, here's the
I know
other
exactly
thing.
what you're talking about. I used to live out there.
Yeah.
So I
Hammer
know,
down.
Yeah.
I know just enough about cutting up meat. Not that I could do it. I couldn't. I still, even though I worked with these guys, I couldn't cut up an animal. It wouldn't look good. But like, you have to understand, the skill that Seth has with cutting meat is unmatched by almost anybody else. There's no one else nationwide that's going to cut an animal up steaks like he can do.
This is like the Michael Jordan of the
Dude,
LeBron James of
he's
meat.
the Michael Jordan of steak cutting.
And that came
There's
from
no-
years.
The goat right here.
Yeah.
You could bring anyone else in that says I'm a butcher. Good luck.
Appreciate
Put you
that.
up against Seth. You ain't gonna touch him.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
And I'm his younger brother. I should tell him no, beat my chest. But I will second that. So we did this video, and Seth, we did it on Facebook Live, and I couldn't tell you how many followers we had. But Seth, this was in October. I think it was a month or two later, and he's like, "Hey, have you seen that video? And it's got like 500,000 views." And I was like, "No." And he's like,
No big deal.
"Yeah." He's like, "Yeah." He's like,
Our
people are
Facebook
like,
page our Facebook page went from 300 likes to like 23,000.
Yeah, well,
in
I mean,
a month,
currently
in a
now
month.
she has a pull. Yeah,
Yeah.
on
This is YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube has 679,000
Yep.
subscribers.
just about ready to
pretty
crack
impressive.
700.
Pretty
That's
impressive.
a few
That's
folks.
wild. Go subscribe.
Yeah,
Get him
yeah.
to
Thank
700,000.
you. Let's go.
Absolutely.
We're going
I mean,
for that
you might-
million mark.
You might get like 2.
Everyone, it starts with 1, Fred.
Yes.
We'll take every
You know,
single
well,
one.
that's funny because like I'm terrible. I can relate to you guys as far as not understanding the internet's like. I feel like because I kind of grew up with the
Mhm.
internet. Like I'm 30, almost 35. I forget sometimes. So like like it kind of came to a thing in like high school. So like you kind of knew, Al Gore invented the internet
MySpace.
apparently. Like
Yeah,
MySpace,
MySpace.
like all those things. I remember the first time I heard Facebook, I was like, this is
AOL
stupid.
Instant Messenger.
Yeah, like I've talked about multiple times where like when the first time they came out with a camera on a phone, I'm like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. Who wants a camera on a phone? Here we are. But like now, but I just have this like disdain for social media, but it's like, man, like I know like if you want to connect with people, like that's where it's at. So it's like you try to just a little bit and it's like, you know what, we'll just trickle out there and we'll see what happens. And
Absolutely.
It
What better platform to try to grow a brand than YouTube because it was free?
Yeah. Well, there is that, and it's like if you have a smartphone, and at the time we're just like, what's preventing us?
right.
And so you can have all your, which I am. I mean, I'm not a big fan of Facebook. I've made that well. In fact, I said I'm never posting another picture of my kids on Facebook because
usually
I don't
just-
want those. I don't want those.
that's
Blank building a profile on me.
Scott's just controversial on Facebook
Mm-hmm.
usually.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's all
and
I
that's
do.
like-
That's my
Oh,
only.
that's Craig saying that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Scott dive bombs in and posts and then
Yeah.
he's gone for 3 weeks.
Just
I'm just
Which-
trapped there forever. I'm in this quicksand. I can't get out.
which it is remarkable. I mean, as you get bigger on, in the public eye, that stuff's all going to get, drawn up. Once it's out there, it's out there. But anyway, so he's like, yeah, it's like 500,000 views. And I'm like, wow, that's cool or whatever. I didn't have Facebook. I think they goaded me into it once and I quit or whatever. And then, anyway,
I'm on board with it.
yeah, Seth's like, I'm going to put it on our YouTube channel, which had the one video of the walking around the meat plant or whatever. You can go look it up. But same thing happened. By the end of the year, it's climbing and the subscribers are climbing too. So that's pretty much where the YouTube presence started with that one video. And, like I said, everything was wrong about the video. And we learned that audio is even as important or more important than the visual. And
Just
so-
like your
so-
podcast when you told us to talk into
Yeah,
the mic. I mean,
so
that type of stuff we didn't know.
Not only did it have the camera at the wrong orientation, but the audio was poor and people were
Lighting's
interrupting us
bad.
and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So, but it the content was very real. It was very authentic, and So we just said, well, let's keep this up. Let's just, next time we're doing this or that, we'll just film it, put it on YouTube.
And that was before we even had the brand on anything other than the Bearded Butcher approved, because what happened was Craig's wife, Jessie, made the logo, and the company, the family business that picks up our renders, which is like the Fat and Bone and stuff like that. They're out of Canton, Ohio. They're the renter.
What do they do with that?
They melt food, pet mostly, cosmetics,
pet food, beauty products, etc. They separate it. They cook it all. Whatever doesn't become an oil gets ground up and gets fertilizer and additives and stuff like that. That's another thing
too. Like people, once again, going back to like not knowing where things come from. Like if you really want to dig down, like
it's in a lot of your.
Don't ever let a vegan tell you that they're against killing animals if they're wearing,
makeups,
makeup,
perfumes,
a belt, whatever.
Half the time clothes. Guess what? Half your clothes come from animals. Like,
and the good part
just
about
understand
it is
where everything comes.
Sure.
from.
100% of every animal that we knock in the head gets recycled.
Gets used.
Right.
So you're fine. The renters, Matt and Andy Renner from Canton. Matt actually got a hold of
a Christmas present. He got these shirts made.
He had 3 shirts made, one for Scott, myself, and our brother Sean. And he presented these shirts for us for Christmas. And it was just like you see here. I wish I still had mine.
I have mine.
Do you?
I'm going to sell it someday.
And that was the very first time we'd ever seen that logo on a piece of apparel. And it was incredible we were just like locked into it because we were like, there it is. It was like, whoa.
There's something special about that. We were like, that's
it.
That's us.
That's it.
Me. Like that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how that portion of it was born.
So we certainly never set about to be YouTubers, but it's like, well, we're going to be doing this animal.
We are, however, opportunists,
right? And we're learning as we go, and maybe that's one of the advantages not having a head filled with college knowledge. We had our fundamental. Like I said, we had that foundation, and we just kept going this route and that route, and I sat down and I built a website so we could put the spices on it, and it's like we need a sauce. So
and this was all during like pre-work hours. So we had a day's production, and that was we discontinued the custom processing. We were working at building the retail. The retail started kicking off. We weren't spending days on this. We were going in. We were getting at the shop at 4:30 in the morning. He would spend an hour maybe working at building a website while Sean got antsy out on the processing floor because we got meat to cut today. So that's kind of how that evolved.
I think that's something else that you haven't addressed is like, most people work 8 to 4, 9 to 5. What do you guys work typically?
When I'm
20
awake.
Years.
I mean, we've been working.
Most people don't appreciate that idea.
We get up at 4:30 Monday through Friday. We get to the shop at 5:30 and we work till 6 Monday through Friday. Saturday we work 8 to 2.
That's 6 p.m.
6 p.m. every day.
So
we've done that. We've done that since we were kids.
Again, I really appreciate you guys being here with us.
Yeah,
I can appreciate your time.
So
Absolutely.
one of the big things is that the challenge now is just like
to your point, Fred, we don't ever want to lose sight on where we came from. This is home. This is Wayne County. That's why we're here.
Sure.
Because it's like it doesn't matter how many followers you have or whatever. It's like we always want to remember. Well, Craig invited us, of course, but we want to remember where we came from. Always. Yeah. This is home.
Absolutely. But we kind of have that, and it's probably a little bit starting to work towards our detriment, and we're working on it. But like that, work with your hands.
Work boots to tennis shoes.
Exactly.
We send pictures. We send pictures to Craig, literally, of our work boots with the soles.
50 pairs of
the
work
soles
boots
are like worn into the padding.
But so early mornings and all that. So we're sitting. We got little kids, and we're sitting there on our phones all the time and stuff like. But it's starting.
Your wife's like, "What are you doing on your phone again?" It's like, well, people are messaging me about something they're
starting to catch on.
Is it Brock Lesnar?
We're going to talk about him.
We'll talk about Brock.
We'll talk about Brock.
I don't mean to tell you what to do because by all means do what you do. But I can tell like from your YouTube videos and your videos on Instagram and stuff like that, like you guys are just genuine. And but at some point, I had this discussion with my brother-in-law too, because he started a business and he is just go, and kind of, maybe I'll talk to my brother-in-law and you guys can just listen. He's not here, but when does that stop?
Yeah.
We felt that pressure, and we're at the point where we simply just need to expand our team.
Yeah,
but it's hard because you guys have a skill that is not easily.
And we're the
developed.
faces. We're the faces of the brand
you can
too.
still be the faces, but
Yeah.
the skill of, like we talked about, I feel like it's art.
Mhm.
What you guys do with
It's like at Bob Ross, the painter.
Yes.
It's like there'll never be another Bob Ross.
Happy little steaks.
Yeah. This
Tiny
little tree
fillets.
over here, and this little tree
We don't
over
make
here.
mistakes. We just, whatever he said.
Nice little flank.
You
Ribeye
got to go a really
ribeye
long
there.
way to find somebody that can cut steak like Seth.
Well, that's true, and so a lot of what we,
Should we talk about the show that I went on out in Hollywood on the History Channel? A butchering competition, and totally got screwed. And I told him that.
I think you should tell that story.
Okay.
I mean, this is why we've turned down every TV offer that's come our way, except for this one. But Seth will talk about it.
So when YouTube started getting popular, I actually one morning I went into the comments on YouTube and into the spam folder, because it's like,
which is probably a bad idea.
it is, because it'll like piss you off, or like there's a reason why it's in the spam folder. Well, there was a production company from California that had reached out to us, and they said, "Hey, we're going to have this show. It's going to be on the History Channel. It's called The Butcher. Would anybody there be interested in going for it?" So I clicked on it and said, "Hey, here's our email. Send us some information. Blah blah blah." Well, they emailed. They actually wanted Scott and I both, but then they said since it was a competition, they didn't want brothers competing on the same show, which made sense. Well, I'll never forget. I was on my way.
That surprises me. I'm surprised they wouldn't want that.
It would have been
Or
cool.
like
They were trying to,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think they were. It was more like a pilot, and they didn't want to use up all their tricks in their bag at one. So they said we're gonna
try to keep it had you on for season 2.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Which, by the way, that's where the Hollywood blend came from. Was based off that show.
Okay.
So put
all the
pieces.
in
Yeah.
there, yeah.
So I was shot a buck one season, and I was taking it to my taxidermist Dave Heyer over in Nova, and they called me, and they were like, "Hey," the production company called me, and they were like, "Hey, you're going to be on this show." Well, I called Scott immediately. I was like, "Okay." Well, I called Scott, and I said, "I don't want to do it without you going too." And he was like, "Well, I didn't get picked, so it's just your luck of the draw, man. Like, you got to go." So we was like, "Okay," made the decision. I'm going to California, and no, you're good.
It was the video for
Yeah, so it was in Hollywood, in Burbank, California. Went through a whole bunch of bullshit with the attorneys and all the paperwork you're signing and all that stuff. Got out there, didn't know what was going to happen. Stayed in this hotel, didn't know if you're going to be there, because the way the competition worked, it was just like the knife Forged and Fire. It was the same, basically the same thing.
Same idea, gotcha. Yeah.
So we get to the hotel. They're like, "Hey, we're going to come meet with you tomorrow morning. You're going to get in a minivan. You're going to be..." Well, first of all, I get to the airport in LA, and they said somebody from the production team is going to pick you up. And this black minivan pulls up, and I was like, "Well, I'm not getting in your van until you show me who you are." Because I'm in LA.
Yeah,
I was like, I don't want my kidneys taken and like thrown in a bathtub somewhere.
right.
So I was like,
Seen the movie
show me.
Taken before.
Exactly. You have to show me who you are. So, anyways, the next morning we get in this van and I meet the other 4 contestants, and we get over there. So the very first day we film, it's an axis deer. And we had to produce like 17 different cuts, 12 cuts, whatever it was, out of this deer. And I was like, well, we had already filmed the YouTube video on how to process a deer. This is right in my wheelhouse. Like, you guys might as well just go home. Right. Well, there was some, I quickly learned that, we're in the Midwest. We cut different. Like, people in the Midwest are used to eating country ribs and sausage gravy and biscuits. Well, when you get on the West Coast, it's completely different. They're going into their supermarket getting, whatever, porchetta or, these fancy rolls, herbs and spices and Tide and whatever. So I quickly realized that, like, that's kind of what I was going to be up against. Well, anyways, made it through the first competition. The second one, so we filmed on Friday. I happened to be there Saturday and Sunday. So I knew I was going to be there over a weekend. Got some hiking in the Verduga Mountains, that type of stuff. That part was awesome. But the thing is when you're in a competition like that, you don't know what's happening the next day, and you don't know how long you're going to be there. So the anxiety and stress is like massive. So you don't even really want to eat because you're too stressed out. Yeah,
just hangs over your head.
Super stressed out. And you're, lights, camera, action, all that stuff. But little did I know that through that process, we made the decision to do that to try to build the brand, but I didn't know how that was going to play into, just learning the skill of camera, speaking on camera, production, the different things where we can implement into our YouTube videos. YouTube was growing, but it wasn't to the point where it's at now. So I was like, this is one more avenue we can use to, educate ourselves.
Right.
And there again, it was free. There was a $10,000 prize at the end, for the winner. So anyways, long story short, Monday we show up, we do a competition where there's 3 of us left, and we have to cut steaks, and we have to cut them from a short loin, and we have to break out the strip section from a short loin, and we have to cut these steaks by not using a ruler, but by eye. And we had to cut them to within I forget what it was. That's like a 1/16 of an inch, but they measured them on 4 points. So you had to get it perfect. So we had to do 3/4 inch steaks, inch 1.5 steaks. And you had to produce 4 3/4 inch steaks, 2 1.5 thick steaks, and however many 1.25 inch, 3. So I blew right through that competition because it's like doing custom processing. I used to get my ass chewed if I didn't cut us half. Somebody would literally come in and pound on our counter and say, "I wanted 3/4 inch steaks, and these are too thick." Yeah, so I grew up with that. So it was I was just gonna completely slaughter them. Blew right through it. So and then on Tuesday we showed up in the way that works is it's like they build up suspense and all this stuff.
Of course.
Well, you're standing there facing the judges, and then you turn around and they open the curtains for the cooler. You can see what's hanging in the cooler. Well, they did that, and there was it was just this other fella and myself, and there was 2 wild boar hanging in the cooler. Well, first of all, it's I've skinned thousands of pigs in my life, and these things are hanging from their heads, right underneath their jaw. They're not hanging from their hind feet. So I was immediately I was like, this isn't going to be easy. They should have been hanging from their hind feet. Right. But the other thing that I knew is that they still had the hide on them. So then they were in a cooler. So they're going to be cold. And we're used to skinning animals when they're warm. That's a completely different ball game.
The fat detachment from
it's super tough. Not to mention that when we did the deer processing the very first day, they gave us a flint bladed knife to separate the quarters of the deer, which was awful. But anyways, I think we had 2.5 hours to in the competition is we were going to take these wild boar and we were going to skin them, and we were going to fabricate them down into as many possible retail ready cuts that we could, and it was going to be based on value. So once we got it displayed on our table, the judges were going to come down and they were going to evaluate your table, and they were going to, whoever had the most value won the show.
Wow.
So we did it, and I was just hammering the guy the whole way through. The other guy, he was a chef, so it's nice guy, but it's you're not a Midwest butcher, you're a chef. He maybe had skinned maybe 5 or 6 pigs in his life, I don't know. So I was like, man, I got this thing in the bag. I'm just rocking and rolling. Get done, have everything laid out on my table, and they call us up and they're like, all right, we'll explain everything that you did. So my thought is I'm going to get all my cuts out on the table, and then I'm going to produce as much ground product as I can, because I know that if I have ground trimming, or if I have trimmings in my tub, I can grind it and make it into a product, and that's just going to increase my overall yield and value.
Right.
Makes sense. They only gave us salt to use to make sausage, because they said, we're just going to give you salt. If you guys want to make something, here's one ingredient. So I do this, and I'm I've got all this stuff laid out, and I make some sausage links and yada yada. Well, I see the clock, and we've got 10 minutes left, so I'm just going to pound out a bunch of ground pork. So I'm grinding these trimmings, and I'm dumping, just sprinkling a little bit of salt on it. Well, I had a 40-pound tray of just ground trimmings, and the judges came down, and they were going through our table and everything that we had on it, and they asked me, they were like, "What is on this tray?" And I said, "Well, that's ground pork." And they were like, "Okay." So we go out, the other dude and I, and he's like, "Man," he's like, "You whipped my ass. I might as well go home. There's no way. I'm over here in the weeds. I couldn't even compete." Well, we get up there for the final, to reveal who the winner was, he won. And he won by like $42. And I was like, something doesn't make sense here. So, of course, I tried to remain as professional as I could,
Right,
even
'cause
though
you
I'm
can't freak
super
out.
pissed.
You're like,
I was like, Dad told
Hide
me
the guy's knives.
Dad told me before we
I
left.
said, I'll show you how to process a human.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Dad told me before I left. He said, more than being a winner, make an impression, because they'll remember that over being a winner. So I remember that. So I was like, I'm going to remain professional through this whole thing. So I leave or whatever. Well, I get into the changing room to take all my stuff off, and two of the judges immediately came down to me, and they were like, it came down to a technicality. And I was like, what are you talking about? And they said, when you added the salt to your ground product, technically it's no longer ground pork, it's sausage, and you called it ground pork, not sausage. And I'm like,
what?
Screw you guys.
Like, what?
So
just by what you called it?
So yes, so
do they just like cast all that? Like,
they threw it out. 40 pounds. So it would have been like a $400 difference. So I quickly realized that this was a television show. Like this was
right.
It was for the drama, it was for the whole thing. And then the judges were like, "Well, what can we do for you?" And I said, "Well, tomorrow I'm supposed to ride down."
Pull your heads out of your asses for one.
I said, "Well, tomorrow you have me riding down to the airport to LA with the dude that won." I said, "That's probably not a good idea." I said, "Because I'm going to kick him out on the highway to 60." I was like, "I'd like to get back to Ohio tonight." And they were like, "All right." So I flew back.
Shenanigans. Send me home.
I flew back to Ohio, but yeah, that was that. That was my experience with television, and that it just taught us a lot, because it's like, obviously we learned all the different stuff for YouTube and production and editing and all that stuff, but we also learned that we have no desire to be in television.
Yeah.
You don't always know behind the scenes, what.
That's so. I guess kind of a blessing for us is that we say no out of like necessity, because we don't have time, because we're still butchering meat. But what that's allowed is that we've gotten to a certain level that we never got attached to anything that we probably shouldn't be attached to. With that being said, now at this point, after
hold your thought. Well, that's why we launched the Hollywood, because I was like, I didn't win the $10,000, but I'll go ahead and make $1 million off of selling a seasoning called Hollywood. So that's the reason why we launched that brand. It's kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing.
I love it.
It was. And but as the sort of that evolution happened, so back to the demos and things like that. So after we put these videos on YouTube, as a matter of fact, Whitefeather first said, "We'd like to have you for a demo." So we came down there and we did that 2 or 3 years in a row,
which was great. I mean, we're friends with everybody down there.
Absolutely.
We go to
and they provided the staff and everything like that. But it started the first year, we just chopped up one deer, and I don't know, a couple hundred people showed up or whatever. And we had the liberty of using our spices, and we had guys grilling, so people are tasting the stuff. Of course, the stuff's flying off the shelves or whatever. And then second year, there was like a couple thousand people, and it was like, wow,
it got big.
They
fast.
don't, yeah. So anyway, we did that 2 or 3 years in a row. In that second year, I think we did like 3 or 4 deer, and
well, we got to a point where we realized that not everybody that came could watch one because there was too many people. So we actually worked with the ODNR to get some special tags and stuff like that when they did some.
Yeah, used it more as some outreach to kind of
some management
drive
stuff.
Awareness to hunting, and people were tasting the stuff, and they're like, wow, like, what's the difference? And so we've learned with deer and things like that, how to age them properly and spice them and stuff like that.
You talk about field dressing and stuff. So we quickly, we wanted to teach people that it starts with the harvest, but then it goes to the field dressing, keeping it clean, the cooling process. Right. I mean, that all is a direct result in the end product that you're going to consume.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know, maybe you have done this in a sense. I mean, it sounds like you kind of are all in the pieces, but thought about you talk about I'm not trying to pull a Craig and throw some ideas on you here. But,
hey, we're
but you talk about maybe this is something that like it kind of beats you down and wears you down, and you're constantly working all the time, and you know you're doing all these things, fin feather fur, different all these different aspects. Like thought about like doing some kind of like not convention's not the word I want. I have a word in my head that always gets rolled around. I can't. But like
we're talking about like a course or like
doing,
a
like different courses for
we talked about that a lot. Yeah, just like basically,
or even in-house stuff too.
Yeah,
well,
like bringing
at
classes
the same time,
in.
like kind of start like so you can kind of train up like your predecessors at the same time, like doing like some kind of thing. Where
to that point, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say this brings in the point of like our retail and what we decided to do there. So take it away.
I don't know what you're gonna say.
Building a store.
Okay, well I can tell that. Yeah, so we're butchering, and like the brand's growing more or less like on the online platform, but it's driving more and more sales to the store. So we kind of realize
we regularly keep Craig in the loop on how well things are going. So we like to we have this thing going where like our daily online sales. I screenshot those and I send them to Craig about every single day. Which I used to
like these guys are always like
I used to do it at night, but then I realized I'd go to bed at 9:30 and I was missing 2.5 hours every night. So I started doing it in the morning when I woke up for the previous day.
Here's my only comment to that. They make a lot more money than I do now, but I can at least sleep in.
That's true. He does have his beat there.
He likes to tell us, 7:30. He's like, I'm still in bed.
When I message a screenshot at 4:30 in the morning and I get a response at 7:30, 8, 9, I know Craig just woke up.
Well, I'll explain it this way. So we did in 2018 we started to build a plan for expansion because our store was just not accommodating everybody that was walking in the front door. We only had like 850 square feet of retail space. Like you could literally walk in, make 3 turns, and you were out of there. We had packed every.
It's a beautiful store.
Well, no, you didn't see it before.
Oh, the old one.
Oh, you're talking about the old one.
Did you see the old? Did you see the old one?
I didn't. I was never inside the old one.
It was very small. It was just basically built to somebody's coming to pick up their order.
All the business was in the back.
Gotcha.
Yep,
went out the side door.
Exactly. So we made a plan to make expansion and build out the retail, and we wanted to make it was becoming a destination point anyway. We kind of wanted to live up to that status. We were kind of told we were crazy because it's Creston, Ohio. There's 2,500 people in our town. There's no stoplight. I mean, there's no reason to come to Creston. Yeah, Craig may have said that or not. Another big risk because we're taking a big financial risk to just like terminating the processing revenue, the custom processing revenue. We're going to make a big financial risk and take on this build. And so we started planning in 2018, and then we executed in 2019, which like anything, when you can look back and be like, wow, glad that we did make the decision when we did. Obviously, with lumber prices and things like that, it was pre-COVID, and then
no kidding. Yeah, but they're coming back down now, I think.
Yeah, exactly. So we kind of made a plan and we executed, and the thing that should be mentioned too is we're we have guys like Craig that bounce a lot of ideas off of. We had one other business mentor that's passed now, completely different business, but gave us a lot of good ideas. Who's a relative of ours, but we have no outside money. There's no sort of nobody pumping this thing. It's just us. So we had to come up with
finger grit and elbow grease.
Exactly. Yep. So we're the ones, and I'm the business accountant too. So I'm handling all the numbers, and I don't think my head can get any bigger. So
how long? So you sleep like what, 2 hours a night?
Yeah, pretty much.
Dude, just not to stall the conversation, but like the combo between these two is unbelievable.
Yeah,
he can cut meat and make the seasoning, and he's got the business sense.
The administrative stuff.
So it's a pretty unbeatable combo.
Well, it's kind of like you talked about with you and your wife.
You do
the gym thing and she does all the.
Is this where I bring it up?
Do not say I'm going to knock you out of the chair.
I like to say it's a husband and wife relationship.
I hate that statement.
He's a wife and I'm the husband.
We do our best, but it don't compare.
Well, and that's just the grace of God again.
And Scott is damn good at numbers.
Yeah,
really good at
it's kind of grown to the point where I'm probably going to need some help pretty soon. But a lot of that is like in anyway, you're going to go to the bank. I sit down and I basically write a business plan for like how we're going to project out these sales, and go to the bank. And
it sounds like
we actually did really well because Wayne Savings Bank has been really good for us, and we've got a great relationship, and they loaned us the money to do the build and everything like that. So in 2019, we spent 3 months, start to finish. Our brother-in-law is a commercial builder. They designed it for us, and they stuck a shovel in the ground in May 15th, and that thing we got occupancy October 15th. I mean, it couldn't have gone any faster, any smoother. They had a great design, great build, and now we have a destination point, and we were able to expand. So
it wasn't working before because like building a YouTube presence and then having people show up to the old store.
It was a little bit of a letdown.
Kind of like,
yeah,
I made a 6-hour drive for this.
Right.
Yeah.
So
now the store now,
working.
like we're like you said, it's Crescent's kind of out in the middle of nowhere, but at the same time, that kind of lends to the,
well, people love it because they're like, I saw cows on the way.
Yeah, I saw cows on the way, and now you can get. But
yeah,
it kind of sounds like, forgive me for saying this, but it kind of sounds like you're following your dad's footsteps a little bit by not like saying, hey, like, I need to pass some of these responsibilities on and continue to grow what you're doing.
Sure.
You guys have skills.
You're 100% right.
Because you guys have something that, like, at least from the outsider's perspective, like I said right when I first met you guys, it was like, man, like I have people that say, man, have you ever heard of that? I know you live close. Have you ever heard of that Whitefeather place? And, I've been thinking about going there. Like, no, stop thinking about it. Just do it.
I should tell the story of why the business is named Whitefeather. So, so our dad, our family name's Perkins, and that's what he ran his concrete business under. But when he started in the bison business, the story goes that 7 generations back, our family was down on the Ohio River in southern Ohio, or northwest Pennsylvania, West Virginia, where all the hillbillies are, right, down there. And they had a trading post, and they were real friendly with the native tribes. And as a symbol of peace and friendship, the native tribes gave them a white feather to hang over your door, so like sign of friendship. So that tradition.
You always knew you had a hot meal and
so
kind of get you on your way when you stopped at a cabin with a white feather.
Yep. When our dad launched the bison business, he kind of wanted to link it to the pioneer heritage or whatever, so he named it Whitefeather. So it was Whitefeather Bison Company. When he bought the meat business, he named it Whitefeather Meats because it kind of encompassed the rest of it. So that's where the Whitefeather name came from. So this is a good opportunity for talk about the sort of the 3 pillars of our business now. So Whitefeather Meats is our operational side. That's where we, it's a butcher shop in every sense of the word, where, you can get, bison, elk, deer, wild boar, alligator, beef, of course, lamb, pork. We do all these different bratwursts. We all house recipes, stuff we spice up. We literally, slaughter it in the back.
But you guys need to stop up sometime. We'll give you a full tour. We'll give you all the way from the back to the front tour.
Well, I was gonna say, when I was there, my daughter and I stopped by. We were out and picked up the bison burgers we had last night and the steak. I think you guys were talking to somebody in there, because I'm like, hey, that's them.
Okay, cool.
But you guys were busy, so like obviously I was like, they have no idea who I am, but like, I've been on their YouTube and I know who they are.
That's funny.
They probably stereotyped you as a YouTuber.
Yeah.
Like, hey, there's a YouTuber. I wonder where he's from.
I just ignored you guys, and I was like,
that's cool.
Yeah. My daughter was like, why is this all this says bison? And like, there's a big. I was like, well, this is the bison cooler. She's like, oh, okay.
So it's kind of your one-stop shop. Sometimes I'll use the analogy. It's like we cut the trees down, and then we turn out fine furniture in the front. It's like the whole process. But then, of course, we want to make sure that you have all, the spices that go on, because, spice has been around for millennia and it's going on meat. And then we talk about, well, how are you cooking this stuff?
Right.
Meat over a wood fire. We'll say that till our death. We like to see meat go over a wood fire.
That's why you do the green egg.
So we do the green egg and we do the Traeger grill, because that gives you the best opportunity to cook this stuff at home. You got to cook it, right? So we have pillar 1, which is our operational side. It's a butcher shop. Fantastic business. Great model. But what we sort of layer over that is pillar 2, which is our online spice business, spices and sauce that we sell online. Like anything that you try to, throw over the wall, it certainly has made it. We ship this stuff all across the world. all kinds of logistics that have come with that. We've learned, going through trademarking and, barcodes, and then having a full-time, a product manager and a full-time SEO guy and a full-time fulfillment team that literally, because somebody has to put this stuff in a package and send it to the people that purchased it. So that's pillar 2. And then pillar 3 is this influencer ambassador side, which we kind of get, have our cake and get to eat it too, because we sort of just layer that back right across the pillar, 2 and 1 in a sense, because we drive a huge amount of sales on YouTube. So there's an actual model for YouTube where it's,
this is going deep, isn't it?
Yeah.
It really is.
If people like
There's
you,
a lot of levels to this thing.
I got a good segue after
Yeah.
this. So.
Yeah. If they like you, they want to give you a little something.
Right.
Like, how can I give them some of my money? I really like these guys. I'll buy something from them. So, whether it's a t-shirt or whatever, people talk about ebooks and things like that. Well, we have a spice and sauce. It's incredibly good. It's addicting, and people buy it. It's likely a grandfather brand in the sense where Fred starts eating it at 35, he's probably still going to be eating it at 75.
We hope so.
So there's that. But
I might be in Key West by then, but hopefully
I'll
still
be
eating.
buying buckets
All
of
right.
it. Yeah.
So we have that pillar 2, and then so we say all roads lead home to pillar 1, which is the Whitefeather, where we do our operation side. So we are trying to balance, because right now we're spending time on the pillar 1, too much time likely, in the sense of developing the other. Well, pillar 2, we've sort of got it to a hands-free. We have people in place that pretty much do anything. We're kind of the CEOs of that operation. Right. We just make decisions.
Which I was really surprised. We hired an SEO guy for our brand in 2019, and he just messaged us over the last weekend, and he has 16 people working under him just on our brand.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
there's a team that we have in place there. What we haven't developed is, and to your point, you said something about, kind of the predecessors or whatever. So we do have our kids involved in Operation 1, and we're teaching them how to butcher. And likely that will probably be our first opportunity to exit. We're not going to make them start.
I'm still waiting for the one to come up through the rank that's going to be better than me, and I'm going to want to whip his ass. Which one's it going to be?
Right. So, but as far as like that goes, now the really tricky part, and I say tricky just because we don't want to stand in our own way, in the sense like the ambassador influencer level, at 700,000 subscribers or 679, wherever we're at. And then you add in, for whatever reason, TikTok's gone crazy. So we have a couple 100,000 on TikTok now and stuff like that. But, if we put the whole ball of wax together, it's kind of like 1 million of all the different platforms combined. What that does is that brings a lot of, I can't do business with you if I don't know you, right? So that brings a lot of eyes in, and a lot of opportunities that we say no to, because pillar 1 keeps us tied down. That's probably been a good point, or a good thing up to this point. It's likely going to become more cumbersome as we move forward, just because we're not developing relationships like we should on pillar 3, because we're starting to make really grounded. We're starting to make really high level contacts. It's just happening. We've talked about television. We've turned it down. But what we're seeing is, an example would be, Craig mentioned, well, I'll just tell the story. So, 2 weeks ago, we were actually filming YouTube's
I just laughed at Craig. He's like,
YouTube's been interesting in the fact that we've had a huge blessing in the fact that our nephew Spencer, he's 20 years old, has developed into our film, our media guy.
That's awesome.
It's huge because he's with us every day, and he's extremely talented. Now, we've learned that we do best when we compensate people extremely well when they bring us that kind of value. So we immediately learned, like, Spencer, you're not going anywhere. We're going to make sure that you don't go anywhere. So we share with him, you know, he gets paid per video, and we share our YouTube revenue with him.
That's
so
awesome.
he has
Yeah,
a
that's
stake.
awesome.
Like Spencer, do you want to pay on your truck for 5 years? You want to pay it off in 2 months?
Yeah.
Come with
20
us.
years old, and you know, he's
Worth it.
looking
Yeah.
at buying a house.
Yeah.
That's
so like
incredible.
this is the kind of stuff that we want to you know, offer opportunity for. But anyway,
We want our team to rise with the tide.
Yeah.
I mean, that's our goal.
Absolutely.
so but anyway, and we understand like this kid has some really good talent, and he's developed it well, and he makes us look really good, and that's huge.
He started with us at probably 60,000 subscribers on YouTube.
Yeah.
So I would say, I mean, his work is solely responsible for where it's at.
That's awesome.
So we have this sort of this unit built in that goes around with this, and that's great because we're creating this authentic content that can be captured at any moment's notice. But 2 weeks ago we were filming a video, and we get a call, and it's the one that you don't not pick up because it was Zach Brown from Zach Brown Band.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
he's FaceTime.
Like hopefully this isn't a butt dial.
Yeah,
let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and pick it up.
Decline.
Yeah.
I'm cutting steaks.
Zach Brown, I don't know this guy.
Yeah.
So Spencer actually keeps rolling. Seth, it's a FaceTime. So Seth picks it up, and it's like, "Hey Zach, what's up?" Which we go back and forth a little bit. We had an opportunity to meet him a few years back, and we do a little business together, and it's great. So anyway,
No big deal.
yeah. So he
which we've learned that like these high level guys, they just want to be treated like normal dudes.
Right.
yeah.
They just that's all they want. They don't
They don't want to be exploited. They don't
Nope.
want to be doted on. They just want to basically be like, "Hey, I do my thing. You know, I like what you're doing or whatever." So he's
But
like,
once you get your foot in the door,
Yeah.
there's huge opportunity there just
Send
by
me some
you
of
know.
that Hollywood seasoning.
Right.
Bro.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So he's like, "I'm here with a big fan of yours," and he has a place up in Alaska. It's like he's not showing the person on the camera or whatever. He's like, "I'm here with a big fan of yours," and he wants to say hi or whatever. So he pans the camera, and it's Brock Lesnar. And Brock's like, "Hey dudes, what's up? You know, I probably watched 100 hours of you guys. I love everything you're doing." He's like, "I built a butcher shop." He's like, "I'm coming to butcher with you guys." So we're like, you know, we BS back and forth a little bit. We're like, okay,
With his
you know,
bare fists.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
so and this was 2 weeks ago. Actually, tomorrow it'll be 2 weeks. But we've had an opportunity then to connect with Brock, and he's coming into town. He wants to slaughter something with us.
he wanted to know where the closest mile long runway was.
Yeah.
So pretty sure.
Dude does not mess around.
Yeah.
Though. Like not somebody that you want to, you know, you just basically in the sense where he's like, he sent us a video of his butcher shop, and it's like it would rival any. Well, it's not a butcher shop; it's his personal garage, but it would rival any small butcher. You know, even what we were working with a couple of years ago. So, but it's just interesting how that works because, like, you know, I sit there and
connection.
Well, he's a fan, and he's a fan. And it's like, sir.
yeah, exactly.
Right?
But he's got this shop that he's butchering, and he wants to learn more. So he's coming to see us so he can.
He wants to work the kill floor and have us teach him how to cut something up.
That's awesome.
So we're gonna do it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Super awesome.
Yeah.
I don't. Do you guys have a timeline or anything? You guys?
I don't even know what time it is.
It's about 10 till 9.
Let us know when it's 4:30.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I got to be up at 4:30, so I got to be at work by 5:30.
6 hours.
Yeah.
So before you guys do have to cut out, you know, we've heard about just the boot in the ass upbringing, which I feel like you probably don't regret at this point.
No.
You know, in the whole growth to all the way through all of the things and the seasonings and the meats and the education you got through that, because that was more of an education than you would have gotten had you have gone through high school, because trust me,
not a recommended path, but definitely on this side, it's like you wouldn't change, you wouldn't want to change anything.
Yeah. What I'll tell you what, I went through high school, wasn't all that great.
Right.
I didn't go to college, and you know, the more and more I realize I didn't, I'm probably okay with that. But all the way to, you know, Brock Lesnar FaceTiming you with Zach Brown, wanting to hang out with you. But so, and we've also touched on not the light at the end of the tunnel, but like what's next for you guys, you know, as far as, you know, not stepping away, obviously, because this is obviously something you'll never step away from.
Sure.
But like what gets like otherwise outside of the fantastical skill you have and what you guys are doing, but like what do you really enjoy outside of this? Like what you know, we've talked about family and things, but what makes Scott and Seth outside of butchering meat?
We had a meeting with our legal advisors, and he asked us, he said, you know, is your goal to just build this thing up and then dump it? Or is your goal to get to the point where you can pass it down to the future generations?
He really had to ask that question? I feel like I don't have to ask that question.
No, you probably know.
Right. But like he's coming from a legal standpoint. So, and our goal is to build this up for our future generations. Right. But like we think that like, you know, the opportunities that we presented with to do some hunting out west and things like that, like that would be our goal, to get to a point where like we bring our boys in and we've built a platform for them where, you know, it's not just the butchering like we were brought up in, but like there's so many more opportunities, because one of them could be a chef. We've seen with our nephew Spencer, who is our video guy and our editor. It's like, you know, then Scott's talents of being an accountant. We recently brought our niece in as his assistant. So it's like there's so many positions that we can fill under this brand that I don't know. It's just a really good feeling to know that like we've built something that can be around a long time. And we recently had the opportunity to go hang out with the guys from Black Rifle Coffee down in San Antonio, Texas.
Oh yeah, listen to that.
Sorry,
not fanboying on you.
No. So they have kind of, you know, taken us from that point and said, hey guys, you know, like we're willing to show you the path that we took, because we believe you're on the exact same trajectory that we took. You know, whether it be co-branding or whatever. I mean, they went from $1 million in sales in 2015 to 167 million last year. So like
just some good old boys from the military decided to start a coffee company.
They are a marketing company who happens to sell coffee.
Right.
We are now realizing that we are a marketing company that happens to sell seasonings and spices.
Right.
So we've got the butchering aspect of it that obviously takes up a lot of our time. But the next phase of our plan is to build that marketing team. That's where Craig comes in, because he recently acquired a building here in Worcester where we're hoping to maybe rent a portion of that. We want to build out some offices, maybe build a studio, have a conference room, and we want to build a legit marketing team where we house, you know, 10 to 15 employees that all have their specific roles. Scott and I are still going to be the face of like the videos and stuff, but maybe we'll introduce some new people, because like Black Rifle, they have maybe like 4 to 6 guys that like, or gals that you see that are like the face of Black Rifle.
Right.
And we've realized that like we're only going to be able to do this so long, so we need to start introducing some new faces.
Right.
And just continue to build the brand. But our SEO guy told us that just last week that we are the #1 butchering brand on the internet, period.
I don't doubt that one bit.
So when you take that and you leverage that tool, I mean, the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
We can do like, we can co-brand, we can market our spices. I mean, we can do
when
do
it's
anything.
such a market, like we talked about, it's such a market that's completely untapped.
Yeah.
People don't understand where their meat those things.
We like
to
think at this point that like, you know, any copycats that try to come up the ranks, like have fun catching up.
Yeah, they're like, oh, well, those guys are cute, but have
We
you heard
get
of
that.
the Bearded Butcher?
Yeah. Like Tony said, we send out a few cease and desists now.
It's happened.
So
we actually are working on one right now. A guy literally in Arizona, he created a company called the Bearded Butcher AZ, and he even trademarked it. So it was like the Bearded Butcher Arizona.
Applied, but
he applied.
It'll get shot down.
He had a food truck with the logo, the bearded guy. I mean, the whole thing. And we were just like, well.
As far as spare time,
full
Brad,
disclosure, ours were totally accident.
Yeah, right.
Not totally. I'm not.
Yeah.
We have nothing to do with meat except just man meat.
All you gotta do is play a song at the end of the podcast, and you're good.
Yeah.
That's all you gotta do to buy your way.
Ours was just music. That's all.
So as far as spare time, I think, you know, with my wife being pregnant with a sixth child, I think you know what I do with my spare time. But
right.
From the hours of 10 to 4:30 a.m.
Yeah. So we both enjoy hunting. and we do it as much as we can.
Well,
Seth
here's
prioritizes a little bit more than I do. And
some
then
of the
I like to
some
work
of
out.
some of
Well,
my
he has what, 4, right?
4, yeah.
Yeah, so he has 2 less kids, so he has a
little bit more time
to hunt.
But it just happened this fall, or this I guess it was late season. But I was sitting in my tree stand and I was thinking, I was like, man, because usually these guys are texting all the time and I don't respond a whole lot. But I've got like 65 texts when I get out of my stand because I don't want to keep pulling my phone out of my pocket. But I messaged Scott and I specifically remember I was like, hey, we've got a bison and we've got a beef hanging in the cooler. We need to do a YouTube video on bison versus beef. And that's where I came up with the idea, just sitting in a tree stand. So it's like that's just somewhere where you go where you just like
quiet.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the good things about our brand is that we haven't had any so to speak strings attached. We don't have we don't have any saddles on in the sense where we have to because we get it. Like people, I mean, oh my goodness, we have full-time, because at this level, and we kind of feel bad for it because we wish we could answer every text message and comment and connect with every single person. Even like you being in our store, I will we'll take a dozen photos in an afternoon. If the timing is right,
if they catch us,
but so we try to lend to that, but like with the online, so we have somebody full time that just kind of monitors all of our. They pretty much keep a list of answers and things like that. But one of the big challenges is just dealing with their overall volume that we deal with. Right. So as far as free time and stuff like that, I mean, frankly, we don't have a lot of it right now. That's probably our next objective in the sense of Craig, the entrepreneurial aspect of it is
Craig actually.
Yeah, but what are you going to do with your free time?
Well, we'll probably think of more videos to do or something like that. But
Craig told us, he said, write down your perfect day on a piece of paper and you can focus on doing that.
Yeah, do that one day.
Our focus has always been on how much.
I could see how Craig more and more plays into keeping you guys balanced.
Well, he does. So that's why we want to bring.
That's when he was here. He's like, you just gotta relax sometimes.
The thing that's good about it is he understands, exactly where we're coming from.
Craig's our best friend, and he knows us better than. Sometimes he knows us better than our older brother because we tell him more stuff than we do him to Sean sometimes. But you need that person.
Yeah.
And eventually we're going to get him in on the team somewhere.
Somehow.
He's like, I don't know, that sounds like a lot of work, guys.
Yeah. But he's already on it. He's not getting
hands cramping up as we speak. He's like,
what time does my work day start?
Yeah. Well, he's already on the team. He's just not getting paid. So
I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
That's
but
awesome.
yeah, as
it's
far
crazy.
as the time, I mean, and the good news is as we look at the big picture, the 20,000-foot view, one thing that has changed is just the financial position that we're in, and that's allowed us to take the family on vacation. So even if if we're still working 60 hours, 70 hours, or whatever, at least we're getting really well compensated for now.
Well, here's the strange thing:
we can do the things, we can afford things that we couldn't afford before, and
still working on that.
The time to use it.
Still working on that Hellcat.
Yeah,
but so when we were growing up, we were flat broke. Yeah. But you had to pay for everything when you're flat broke. But then when you gain success and you have money, people offer you things for free.
Stuff comes in the mail and you're like, wow, okay.
Wild. So Scott and I were going to be going to New Mexico this fall on an elk hunt.
Oh, that's awesome.
Unit 34, awesome. New Mexico, and it's being paid by one of the companies that we work with through our YouTube channel. And these guys basically reached out to us and said, "Hey, we're sending you on an elk hunt. You just got to show up at the airport." And matter of fact,
how can you say no? You're like, oh, I mean, I guess, yeah, sure.
But it's just weird how that happens because it's like we went from 5 years ago we went hunting with Craig down at his grandpa's property in Lakeville and we had under $10 in our checking account.
Right.
I bought a deer tag and it left me $6.12 in my checking account. I have
been there. I haven't been to the point where people are inviting me to go elk hunting in New Mexico, but I've been to the point like, you know what, like this $25.
You getting lunch today?
I can't.
This $25 tag might put meat in my freezer. So you know what? I gotta drop
So-
this $25
so
in this
yeah,
tab.
I mean,
Absolutely.
that's kind of the thing, but like, you know, it's a testament to like, you know, and we had so many factors that fell into place. I mean, you know, from the work ethic and the timing and this, the fact that, like I said, the butchering was cold open on the internet. I mean, there was literally just a path. And so now, you know, quite frankly, we spend a fair amount of money just preventing people from trying to replicate, duplicate.
Now
rip
we've got
us off.
Now we've got our guard up because it's like,
Right.
who's coming around that, you know?
Yeah.
So,
But you know, as these things, you know, work with the internet and, you know, whatever, if the switch got flipped today, we still know how to turn, you know, animals into food. But the process has been a pretty wild one, but you
Sounds
know,
like
it's
it.
kind of got us to a point where at least we're driving the bus.
You know, the only thing I want to say, you always see online all this motivational crap about you don't fail until you quit, right?
Right.
You always see that. You don't fail till you quit. But like these guys, the three of us, if we would have had to do what they did, we would have quit a long time ago. They didn't quit.
You've met Fred. I know you've met Fred.
And now they're gonna be they're gonna be more successful than anyone I know.
well, I
You
asked,
know, so it goes. They didn't quit.
that's exactly
And
what
they
I
finally struck
Yeah.
gold.
I asked.
and it's really
I-
wild to watch.
We just had this text conversation last week because I messaged Craig and I was like, "How did this all happen?" And that was his exact response. He said, "You guys, you
Should have
you
quit
didn't- you
10
didn't-
years ago.
They
You didn't
should
quit.
have quit 10
You
years.
should have
That's
quit.
pretty much.
When I left, they should have all quit.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they didn't. And
A lot of that
now-
has, like I said, has to do with Fred, our dad, because we were too terrified of him. I probably to quit because he was I'll keep you alive. That was his mantra. You may not like it, but I'll keep you alive. So we've
also been told that
you just don't quit attitude.
If you have a piss poor attitude, he would tell you, if you were in Vietnam with me, I would have shot you.
Well, that too,
and left you along the trail.
Well,
so
yeah, you know what? As much as I absolutely hate to do this, it's been like 2.5 hours.
Yeah, we got to wrap it up.
Well, let's just do it again.
Yeah, no, and I was literally about to say that we can. I would absolutely, hands down, love to do it again anytime you guys are free. I know you guys are much busier than I am, so anytime you guys want to come on, and then we don't have to talk all about it. We can talk as much about the business as you want, but just to come on and shoot the shit.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Such a
Because
phenomenal time.
I mean, I want to hear about Craig's business too, because he's a very successful business owner in
he's
Wayne,
talked,
Wayne
well, he
and
teased
Ashland County.
He
So
teased when he was on here a few weeks ago, and he teased this. Oh, I got this thing coming up, and then he's like, I won't be able to talk about it. And then afterwards, he's like, I can't talk about it until the fall. And then like 4 weeks later, he's like posting stuff on the gram, and I still think he's going to run for governor. I think he's going to do it. He's running for governor. Look at that. You can't deny
We'll
that
back you,
beard.
Craig.
Yeah, you can't
We'll throw
deny
some of that cash your
beard.
way.
There's 700 or 675,000 YouTube. Oh, Craig, we get you up, bro.
Yep.
we're right to the top.
Right to the tippity top.
No.
There's actually a bearded butcher logo out there with Craig's face in the middle of it, and it's going to come into play at some point.
Keep in mind, my wife made that logo.
That's
Yeah,
right.
so full circle.
Full circle.
My face.
Yeah.
can
We
go
bought
on
her a
there.
Pat Catan's gift card, Craig.
$25.
Yeah.
She funds a multi-million-dollar organization.
Pat Catan's gift card.
Yep.
So at the end of the day, we gave in 2015, and not to stroke egos or anything like that, but we gave up $350,000 in revenue to discontinue custom processing. But little did we know what was coming after. So it's like, if we have any inspiration or advice to anybody out there, you got to risk big, and either you're going to fail big or you're going to win big. It's just part of it.
You
We
can't
took some
make it big unless you risk big.
Well, and
massive
Craig said this
risk.
too. He's like, this was when.
And don't ever give up.
This is when Trump was president, but he's like, this is America.
Those were the good old days.
What can happen? You fail. What? You're not going to be begging bread on the streets. I mean, the
You're not
worst
gonna
thing
die.
that happen is like, you
Yeah.
have to pick yourself up and try again. So, I mean, that was great advice. I mean, unless
Well,
you're not going to be.
these guys always talk about all the smart stuff I said. I talk a lot, like not on the podcast, but when I work there,
I don't forget anything.
No,
I talk
That's my-
24/7. 90% of the stuff I say is stupid. It doesn't amount
Well,
to anything.
well, I think
Every
we-
once in a while I have a little gold nugget.
We have the
Those guys
ability
were able to pick it out.
Yeah,
That's
we
all
have
that
the we have the ability to pick through the shit, and it's like, okay, we're gonna put this in this pile, this in this pile. So,
but iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
And if you've ever lifted with anybody stronger than you know that's going to elevate you, and that's what it was with Craig. He went on to the gyms, and we saw that and everything, and it really helped. It helped us broaden our mindset, because it really begins with a mindset. So,
and it takes a lot of faith and endurance and believing in yourself. And
there's plenty of content out there to dive into. I mean, our YouTube channel's got 70 videos on it or something like that, and all the
Yeah, so you guys are
beardedbutchers.com.
Beardedbutchers.com.
Gets you
Bearded
to
Butchers
the-
on YouTube.
Yep.
You have all
pretty
the
much
stuff
just
on there?
Google Bearded Butchers, and
you'll find us.
you're
And if you
gonna
find
jump
somebody
into
that's
the
not
deep
us,
end of
let
the
us know,
pool.
because we'll go ahead and take them down.
Yeah.
Unless it's happens
Unless
to be
it's on a guitar.
Unless it happens to be a random crappy cell phone video of the Beard and Butcher and some terrible lighting.
Leave those guys
some
alone.
playing guitar.
They mean no
So
harm.
in the United States, we own everything related to Bearded Butcher. Period. Everything.
Good
so,
for you guys.
Yeah. And that's-
Awesome. Tony,
So
you
go
have,
to
you
Europe.
have any
Do it there.
final?
Sorry, Tony, you
question?
didn't even get a chance to talk.
No,
You're just
I'm
sitting
just
here.
listening,
He
man.
usually
That's why
stays quiet when someone's
Okay.
talking. He usually stays quiet.
I
because
do. I try and throw a little humor in there. I apologize for showing up a little late.
No,
It's a late
I want to
piece
hear
of
about
hour.
the nurse practitioner. I want to hear about all that.
You guys
stuff.
got to come back on.
We'll,
so
we'll
we can
come back
just
on and do
hang
round
out.
two.
We're coming back on
For
for
sure.
sure.
Hell
For
yeah!
sure.
So
Craig, thank you
Yeah.
for coming back on. Scott,
My
Seth,
pleasure.
thanks for having us.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
very
Wayne
much.
County, this is our home. We'll be back.
Whitefeather, Bearded Butcher. Check them out.
Thanks, Fred. Thanks, Tony. Craig, thank
Appreciate
you.
it, guys.
Thank you guys.
See ya.
Thank you for hanging out with us on this episode.
Appreciated as always. And if you have any questions, comments, ideas, or guest suggestions, leave them in the comments after you subscribe to the channel, or visit chroniccuriosity.com to get in contact with us.
And the store, which you can pick yourself up some fantastically curious merchandise.
Until next time. That's it.